Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and family beyond the binary, hello and welcome to the GGEU Overwatch Upper Bracket Semifinals. My name is Warren Jugglegod Hammond, and today I am joined on the mic by Corbeck. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Juggle, looking forward to an interesting playoff match here. Deinial, that's it. I am never going to get used to saying it the right way, but deinial Esports is a very strong team coming into the semifinal. They've been 9-0 on the season. They have yet to drop a single game. Altera Orion, not to take credit away from them either, 6-3 coming into this matchup, a very strong team in their own right, but certainly they're the ones who are looking at a bit of a mountain to climb here today.
Yeah, that they are. But before we get into the match, we have a little bit of a somber note that we are going to start on. A beloved member of the Spanish Overwatch community and deinial Esports passed away this last weekend. And it's a terrible tragedy. And we wanted to have a moment of silence to start things off, as well as a Torb 3v3, since that was one of their preferred heroes, their main, as a matter of fact. So wanted to send our condolences to everybody who knew them, to deinial Esports, and the entire Overwatch community, as a matter of fact. But let's talk a little bit more about this matchup that we are going to see first. We're going to get to that moment of silence in just a couple of minutes. We're going to be starting off this match on Lijiang Tower, Corbeck, and I can't think of a better place to get things started.
No, Lijiang Tower, kind of the traditional Koth map. I do believe it's Altera Orion's favorite Koth map as well, so a little bit of an advantage going over to them, but obviously a great diversity amongst the stages. It is going to force some shifting here on these teams as we go through them. You'll expect maybe more wide-ranging comps on some of the more open areas, and of course, the more stereotypical brawl coming in there on Control Center. A lot probably going to come down to what stage comes up first. Some teams really do end up just liking specific parts or specific stages of this map far more than others. Control Room, often a favorite of teams. Some teams just really dislike Gardens. So always interesting to see Lijiang Tower at the top of the rotational list.
That it is, because, there's so many different looks you can come out with on Lijiang Tower. Like you mentioned, Control Center, a very brawl-favored map. The only one in the three sub-maps, I think, at this point that still really does favor that composition. You can still run it on the others, but they're looking a little bit more like a disruption composition, something with a wrecking ball and a Pharah, something that pokes these teams down.
Yeah, it does seem that the second stages, or the other two stages, I should say, on Lijiang Tower have really come forward as more disruption-oriented. But then again, I mean, they've always kind of been that way, right? When you think about the long history of this map and how it's been played, Garden has always been more of a far favored site. You try and get some aerial supremacy going, very similar with Night Market, though obviously there was a time in Night Market where the brawl kind of fight on the point was very much a thing. But I agree with you. The general trend, I think, across the board has been more towards those kind of chaos comps on a lot of maps, and this is no exception to that rule.
No, it certainly isn't. So I think Lijiang Tower going to be a great litmus test for both of these teams to see what kind of compositions they feel comfortable on, what kind of, heroes we can expect to see throughout the rest of the series.
I think that's always a fair assessment, but I do always offer up this note of caution, right, about Koth maps, and I'm sure you've seen it as well before, Juggle, right? You can't always judge everything based off Koth. Some teams are just really good, right, at these very chaotic maps, these very kind of team deathmatch style maps, and then you come over to a map which is much more structured and organized, your, King's Rows of the world, right, or your 2CPs of the world, and then it's a lot more of a struggle for some teams to put together coherent defenses and to deal with, weird respawn times and spawn advantage and stuff like that. So Koth maps are a good indicator of how things are going to go, but take it always with a grain of salt, because you never know if one team is just particularly superior at this particular game mode.
Yeah, that is an excellent point, and I'm glad you brought it up before we get this match started, because you can see one team just completely dominate on Koth and then turn around, and on the next payload map, it's like, are we watching the same team? What happened here, right? So it's very, very, very common that something like that can happen. So it also brings a lot of excitement, I think, to an Overwatch matchup. So it looks like we are ready to go with this moment of silence for Trionyx, that beloved member of deinial over or Esports. So we are going to go send into that momentarily. And when we do, we in the broadcast booth are going to stay silent until the Torb 3v3 is done.
Hello. Overloading. Hey. Merging the belt.
Thank you so much for joining us in that moment of silence, and our hearts go out to everybody again on deinial Esports and the Spanish Overwatch community. Thank you so much. And now, Korvac, why don't we get into the matchup on Lijiang Tower?
Yeah, let's hopefully hop into it quickly as we can. It's a good moment of silence, though. I think every Torb man would appreciate a good Torb hammer fight in their memory. There is no greater duel of honor amongst Torbs, so that is that.
Not.
But again, it is going to be a bit of a rough day here, I think, for Altera Orion. Right, this is certainly a match in which they come in as a clear underdog. I think that most people in the GG EU community, and keep in mind, I am a bit of an outsider, right, but I would say that most of them would probably peg deinial as the pretty much odds-on favorites to win the whole thing at this point in time with the 9-0 record that they have going into it. That said, upsets happen, right, all the time. You never know, and on any particular Sunday, right, you can see something happen. So perhaps Altera Orion will come out and surprise us a little bit today on these maps. And I tell you what, though, as much as I said that you can't take too much away from Koth, I do think if Altera Orion comes out and strikes early here on Lijiang Tower, just from a momentum standpoint, that will help them immensely.
Yeah, I think it certainly will. Momentum is a big part of Overwatch, as is just a mental game as well, right? And so if you come out with a big win in your first map, that can absolutely help you carry on into more success later on down the road. But we are loaded into Night Market once again, and that will be the first sub-map we see on Lijiang Tower.
It will be indeed the first one. Night Market is an interesting prospect, and I'm not surprised to see initially Mazzino coming out here on the Symmetra. This has been a very popular choice on this map for a while now, not only for the teleport engage, but also for just setting up turrets if you can secure the early hold onto the point. Altera Orion showing us much more of that kind of chaos comp that we were talking about at the start here. Nutty Nansa coming out on the Pharah. Gonna have a little bit of a rough time, at least perhaps initially. They have no healing support, and while there's no hard counter to the Pharah over on deinial Esports, surely an icicle here or a turret blast there will make that Pharah's life that much more difficult.
That it will, and we do see the early teleport coming out from one of the teams. Now, Altera Horizon looking to start to surround this point with this disruption comp, and already deinial out of the fight, so Altera Horizon starting off with a 5v6 here. This is going to make it a lot harder for deinial Esports to stay on the point. A little bit of disruption coming in once again from Tim Plays on that wrecking ball. And now, members of deinial Esports being pushed out of that point. Several of the members have gone down, and once the dust settles, this is going to go in favor of Altera Orion.
Yeah, it almost certainly will. A little bit of a delayed effort there by Deinial to come back in and fight it out, but it's ultimately doomed. They have to switch up the composition. Now that Kip has switched off of Lucio onto the Mercy, just gotten the speed boost out of spawn, I don't think there's any way they can counter this out with what they had, and sure enough, Mazzino switching over to the Cassidy there. A very wise choice indeed, though even a Cassidy matched up at Farmer C, that's a tough order.
Yeah, that certainly is, because, well, Pharah has that pocket. You're going to have to get a couple of well-timed headshots in order to take her out of the air. Unless you take that Mercy out first, but it has the Valkyrie online already. Here comes the barrage, the one member down. Mazzino, that was the first one they needed to take out. Karen Gorm follows shortly thereafter, and the Deinial Esports having a hard time cracking this nut that Altera Orion has presented them with.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. They took that long rotate there through kind of the restaurants and what have you. And I do actually kind of wonder about the viability of doing that. Obviously, you have the cover from the Pharah, but your sprint to the point really is just going to be equally as long no matter what, right? Now you're sitting at a significant ult disadvantage as well. This is a bad start here. Yeah,
it certainly is. Wall comes out to keep away the members of Altera Orion from contesting Deinial Esports as they just capture this point with impunity. Nutty Nanza unable to really stop them from getting there, as is members of the rest of Altera Orion. Timplays goes down early, and without your main engagement tool, that Wrecking Ball, it's going to be hard for Altera Orion to start to move into this point and get any kind of purchase there. They may just need to wait for Timplays to respawn.
I'm actually surprised that worked as well as it did, just with the ult advantage that was in the pocket there. You see Nutty Nanza forcing the boosters, but that's not a particularly wasteful use of the utility, obviously. Still pressing in, though, here now. A proper fight set on the point.
Yeah, that it is. With Timplays back in the matchup, they're able to engage. Natsuki pops the Transcendence, but there's a sound barrier on the other side from Sir Freezy. Cassidy does find a Deadeye kill onto Timplays, and once again, Deinial Esports coming out on top. They're going to be able to hold on after really sneaking that point out from under the feet of Altera Orion.
Yeah, they did just kind of slip in there, didn't they, and take it on that last fight. But it was a good read there by Deinial to see that Transcendence coming out early from Natsuki and then just to immediately follow up with the Blizzard, because there was absolutely no answer for it on the side of Altera Horizon. They still have two powerful ults here, nearly on another Pulse Bomb, though, very much in the position where they can make plays happen. It's just a matter of setting them up and trying to get into a favorable position for Nutty Nanza to unleash this barrage. That damage amplification matrix, though, going to make it a little bit more difficult here.
Yeah, that certainly is. They're going to have to somehow get to a different angle or just wait for it to expire, and it looks like they're just going to wait for it to die down. And now they come in with a barrage. It's going to find Deinial, and that could be the opening that they need. Self-destruct on point as well. The Pulse Bomb doesn't find anything. The Immortality Field from Cairn was there just in time. Picks on either side, though, at the moment. Manu out of the fight without your main taken, with David Enzo getting demeched as well. This is looking good for Altera Orion to be able to retake this point, and that is a good thing because they were at 99% for Deinial.
Well, the problem now with the 99%, though, is that you are in perfect fight territory. It was good that they were able to res Natsuki there at the end because they do have that Transcendence in the pocket. That said, Deinial Esports really looking a little bit rough here in terms of ults. They only have SR Freezy with that sound barrier. Nothing else coming online. 3 ults for Altera as they take this short route in.
Yeah, that they do, but they are met by a minefield. It doesn't seem to slow them down for very long, and they almost capture the point. Once again, they are able to, in fact, turn it over in their favor. Transcendence has to be used by Natsuki to get members of Altera Orion to point. Karen has to use the Immortality Field, and it's just in time to stop the barrage from Nutty Nanza once again. But Myth is popping off right now with a couple of Pulse Bomb kills. Altera Orion looking very good here, but Deinial doesn't want to let it go just yet. David Enzo out with the out of the mech as well, and with that, Altera Orion going to be able to retake this point.
They might be able to get one more contest in here from Deinial. It looks like they will. They're going to take the short track in.
Yeah, that they are. Mazzino is there for the touch right beforehand. The rest of the members do come in, but they don't have any ults for this, but neither does Orion. This is going to be a dry fight to end it both, at least starting out that way. Altera Orion with a couple picks already. Care down, Manu down as well, and as the members of Deinial Esports start to fall like flies, Altera Orion gonna go up 1-0 after this sub-map on Lijiang Tower.
Well, it's a good stage one there for Altera Orion. I mean, it is worth pointing out that Deinial did take them to 99%, so I can't think we can say it was a complete walk away. But, I mean, Deinial got, I think, rather lucky on their initial assault. I think there was a couple of mistakes that Tim Plays in particular was making with those minefields. If he had just held on to them and actually dropped them on the point, I think they would have been far more effective, all things considered, than trying to catch a team in rotation with a Lucio, because genuinely by the time that the minefield is activated, right, you try and drop it on a team that's in rotation, they'll just be gone.
Right.
Still, you know, Altera Orion managing to pull one out there. They're not going to be able to get as much value out of Nutty Nanza on the Pharah here as though, and I'm kind of curious how this is going to look, especially with keeping Natsuki on the Zenyatta. That is just not a lot of healing. Very single target from both your healers as well. Going into someone like a Doomfist too, Mazino can absolutely eat Natsuki alive.
Yeah, that they can. This is a very high-risk, high-reward kind of composition coming out from Altera Orion here on this map. And starting out with a pick on the Natsuki as well, they go off the map by a well-placed boop from SR Freezy. And now it looks, though, as though Altera Orion able to hold on to point. Someone from deinial Esports is going to need to contest it. They do at the last moment there. And now this point is really opening up. Natsuki's back in the fight now for Orion, so they are back to full strength. David Enzo going down very low. They're almost demeched. Myth looking for some kind of an opening here, and they find it on Mazino, but Natsuki was picked in the meantime by them as well. So it's going to be a 5v5, but crucially, Altera Orion coming away with the first point captured.
They're taking their time trying to re-engage here as well. Unfortunately, the Pharah is just kind of zoning them out. Myth getting the chip damage on the outside edge, but a good re-engage here with the Amplification Matrix.
Yeah, it absolutely is. deinial is going to be able to walk onto point and really start putting a lot of pressure on there, whereas Orion's going to have to hide for the moment, try and stay out of those sightlines from that big amplification matrix. Tim Plays goes in, but they're a little bit low. Minefield now committed on the point as well. Manu going to have a hard time pushing through that, but they're starting to. Excellent shot there from Mazino to take Nutty Nanza out of the sky. And to follow it up with a kill onto Tim Plays as well is huge. Without that threat from the sky and that wrecking ball to engage, it's going to be hard for them to really keep this going, but they are stalling it out fairly well. They're going to get it over 60% before it finally turns over to deinial Esports once they get these last few staggers out of the way.
Yeah, they continue to just be a menace to Tim Plays right there. Mazino with some really good plays and a general really solid flanking motion there from deinial to just get around the outside edge. You saw how Natsuki and Kip were kind of caught almost out of position, though not necessarily. I mean, Natsuki looked like they were relatively safe, but then the speed boost from Lucio, they just get over there as quick as they can, and suddenly, you know, Zenyatta's got the entire enemy team in his face, and what can the Mercy really do for them? Interesting that they switched over to a Brig here, though, to bring up that second support slot.
Yeah, they swap over to the Sombra as well. So that makes a little bit of sense. Mazino, though, able to take out Natsuki from the fight. deinial is able to find another pick as well. And with that and the sound barrier online from SR Freezy, they're going to be able to take that point with relative ease from Orion.
Again, I do want to emphasize, I just don't know about the validity of taking Brig into this composition. I mean, obviously, Brig is a strong support choice in a lot of circumstances. But as much as it can serve for a bodyguard for Natsuki, it can't necessarily provide a ton of support to the tanks, which I think might be a little bit rough going into what is essentially a brawl from deinial.
Yeah, exactly. With deinial swapping over to that Symmetra as well, the utility, that value that the Brigitte gets, I think, falls as well. But fight breaking out on point. Here comes a Deadeye from Mazino, but he's taken out by Myth at the last moment. Self-destruct on point now. It's going to clear away the mines from Tim Plays. Mano has the Earth Shatter. Is not going to find any target at the moment, though. Self-destruct out now. He's going to catch two. And that is a big two that it hits as well. Manu going down without your main tank, and now that main source of healing. Altera Orion take this point back under their control.
Altera Orion probably going to win this. All they need is for Nutty Nanza to hit a very solid EMP here on the entry, and there's going to be no way deinial can touch, and it's going to be a hard task for them to get onto this point.
And here comes that EMP. It catches a couple of members of deinial Esports. The hack comes out onto a third. They're going down low. We see deinial fall to Natsuki. An excellent use of that glass cannon Zenyatta right there. Point now being contested hotly, but it's overtime already. Couple of picks, though, coming in. Mazzino popping off once again for deinial. They're going to be able to hopefully bring them back into the fight for that team. Hack comes in on them, though, but they're able to shake it off as they pick Natsuki out of the fight once again. And with that, deinial looks like they're going to be back in this fight.
Oh, man, that was very much Altera Orion's fight to lose, if I'm honest. Some serious, I think, positioning errors in there and a bad early engagement. They needed Nutty and Anza's EMP in the entryway, in the lobby. They did not need it when they started to fight on the point, and I think that was the most serious kind of issue that they had right there. On top of that, poor Natsuki was rotating way too far outside the bounds of the rest of the team. Got a good pick on Mazzino to start here, though.
Yeah, and that is going to be crucial. Natsuki has this Transcendence up and ready to go, but it's SR Freezy who pops the sound barrier first to keep the rest of his team up and alive. Karen Gorm is going to be able to pop this Amplification Matrix very soon as well. Self-destruct online for David Enzo. Here's that Transcendence from Natsuki to try and keep the team alive, but there's just too much damage coming in. They're unable to sustain on point. Natsuki does find a pick onto Mazzino, but it may be too little too late as the Shatter from Manu connects as well. And now they're just sweeping away the members of Orion to and fro with that rocket hammer. Tim Plays is back on point to try and stall things out, but there's only so much a mechanized hamster can do. And with the self-destruct on point, that's going to do it. deinial evens up this first map, Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, again, that was 100% Altera Orion's to lose. They were in the driver's seat. They had one of the most powerful ultimates in the game sitting in their bank, and it was just deployed at, I think, slightly the wrong time. And, well, it can be a margin quite razor thin here in Overwatch sometimes, so it did not work out for them. Now they go on to stage 2. I mean, again, a very close map, though, right? By no stretch of the word could we say that deinial was strongly in control there. I don't think that was the case. One of the things I did notice was that deinial himself was kind of on the pursuit of Myth for quite a while, which I think was a bit of a misapplication of resources. When he finally decided to go ahead and transfer back to the focus of maybe like the support line, I felt like they were getting much more value out of that Pharah. But we'll see here how they do with Nutty and Anza on the Sombra at the start of this map.
That we will. They're going to have a lot more time to build up that EMP, which can be so crucial for these fights. Fight breaking out now near Altera Orion's side of the map. Manu jumps in for an engagement on the back line of Orion. They're going to have to back up and give a little space right now. And now Tim Plays pushing on to point, but they lose their life, going in a little too aggressive too early. But crucially, there is a counter pick on deinial's side as well. SR Freezy has just respawned, so they're going to be back in the fight a little bit sooner than maybe Tim Plays, despite that speed from the Wrecking Ball. Fight breaking out heavily on point right now, but it could go either way as David Enzo does find a pick onto Myth, but falls shortly thereafter. deinial coming in with a big pick onto Kip, though. Natsuki going down low as well, and with that, Altera Orion's chances of taking this fight looking lower and lower. Cleanups coming in now as the point ticks over to them.
Lower and lower indeed, and unfortunately I have someone with a leaf blower outside my window, so if that's unpleasant,
no.
just let me know, and I'll turn it back over to you. It looks like they've stopped momentarily. Leaf blowers these days, I tell you what.
I didn't hear anything, so
all right,
hopefully
good.
Nobody did on stream either.
Yeah, well, I think we're fine there. Unfortunately, Altera Orion not so fine. They do have EMP here again from Nutty Nanza. If this is a big one, I mean, it's such a strong engage. I don't know if that was big enough though. 4 in.
It does take the Coalescence out of the fight, as well as the Coalescence wielder, Cairn. But counter picks on each side. Once again, Manu with his Primal Rages turning things around for deinial. Getting a pick onto Natsuki. Easy to knock that Zenyatta off the map. Hack comes in onto Myth, and they're not going to be able to get out of trouble right here. They're going to have to rely on their team to come to their aid. That's exactly what happens. Excellent stick. It's going to take David Enzo's health down to about half, but it doesn't come with any kind of a successful kill. Ego, though, is going to be demech. They use that self-destruct to remech at this point. And now Mazzino looking for an opportunity to use this EMP, but crucially, there's nothing really to follow it up with. But they may not need anything as the support line has been deleted for Altera Orion. And now deinial Esports getting this close to last fight territory.
Well, I feel sympathetic towards you, Juggle, because these are some crazy fights. Very disparate, very hard to follow. As a play-by-play caster like Maine, I know that is unpleasant indeed. But it was interesting. I actually think Mazzino could have held on to the EMP right there to secure a fight win in this situation. I don't think they needed to invest it in the cleanup phase. Nutty Nanza is going to have to win this one with their EMP, though. If they use it early on, it will be a fight ender as long as the team can follow it up.
Yeah, that's true, but crucially, they're going to have this coalescence to fight into again. And there it is. The EMP does hit Cairn out of the fight once again, and that is crucial for Altera Orion's chances at taking this point. They have several picks. They've really timed that EMP well with the rest of the team. They're going to come away with point possession.
Yeah, part of the problem there is I think deinial fell into the classic trap, right? They just kind of tried to chase down Tim Plays, and they did a good job of sectioning off the Wrecking Ball, but at the same time, they overextended their own lines, and they left Cairn a little vulnerable. Cairn also needs to be a little bit more careful about managing kind of cooldowns. I think that they should be able to escape some of these EMPs. Unfortunately, it's just not working out, and it's a good read by Nutty to get them off and catch that main support.
And a couple of support ultimates to start this fight off right here. Nutty Natsuki goes down early. The rally from Kip not quite able to keep them up, and with a couple of picks in favor of deinial Esports, this is looking good for their chances of coming back and taking not just this sub-map, but the entire map of Lead Dog Tower. T-Mac comes in onto Ego as well, but they're going to use the self-destruct to try to get back in mech, but they weren't able to successfully. Now, point has been flipped back over into deinial Esports' favor, and with the pick still coming in favor of them, it's going to be all that Orion can do to try and stave off this defeat. Natsuki uses the Transcendence to get the point, but it's not going to be able to help Nutty Nanza out of their situation, and that is crucial because they were just about to get that EMP online, as Sarfreezy has just about put the nail in the coffin for this, for deinial Esports with that sound barrier on point with overtime taking over. That's going to do it. deinial Esports goes up 1-0.
Again, though, close fight, I think, for those first two stages in particular, right? Obviously, Altera Orion was really putting the boot in there. They were making deinial work for it, and Myth walking away with the play of the game as well, which is, I think, relatively well-deserved. It was so funny on this map. Poor Myth had, I think, been trying to stick a relatively good pulse bomb this entire time, and finally, when his team absolutely needed it the most, he managed to get that huge stick there at the tail end of that fight, Joel, and it was exactly what he had to have in that situation if they were going to win. Last stage there, looking a little bit more shaky for Altera Orion, but again, I think this actually bodes pretty well for them that they were able to hang on the Koth map. Koth maps, I think, are kind of the great skill differential, right? Like, they often highlight if there's a giant skill gap between two teams because there's just no crazy strategies you can run. There's no trickery to be had. It's a fight. So the fact that they were able to hang as well as they did, I think bodes quite well here for them.
I think it does, and as we move into a hybrid map, it's going to be up to Altera Orion to try and pick something that's going to work to their favor, and I wonder what they're going to hang that on. You know, they had a lot of success, I think, on any of the compositions that they ran, so I think that they can really go anywhere with this.
Yeah, hybrid is always a bit of an interesting choice in my opinion. I think there are some hybrid maps that, it's probably best to just stay away from them. Nibani in particular, I think, is one that, if you have a pick, right, what are you going to do? Nibani? Blizzard World, as much as I like the map Blizzard World, as you can tell, it's not another one that I would necessarily cling to as this is the hybrid we must play. Would not surprise me at all if I was just going to say we see Eichenwald or King's Row. I think the Eichenwald choice for them is a particularly good one here because it has great Pharah play available to it, especially on point number 1.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. That giant tower in the middle there just gives so much opportunity for the Pharah to stay in the sky and to stay safe as well. They can really just hide behind that giant watchtower there. And it makes it so much harder for someone like Mazzino, who is on that Cassidy, to try and find value, to try and plink her out of the sky. It just becomes that much more difficult, especially if you've got somebody like Tim Place running around on the Wrecking Ball causing all sorts of mayhem and havoc.
And I do feel like those were the Pharah based like composition using a Pharah as a DPS was where they looked most comfortable. In general, as a team, I feel like they actually, when they had to swap over to trying to use the Sombra more and focusing a little bit more on that, they actually looked a little bit more discombobulated. So I think going to a Pharah friendly map is a really wise decision for them. I mean, you know, whether or not that bears fruit, it's hard to say, but you made a really good point, right? It puts a lot of pressure on Mazzino or whoever is going to be kind of the counter. And like I said in the last map, it's already really quite difficult for, we kind of expect, you know, a Cassidy, a hit scan to just be able to counter a pharmacy combo. It's very difficult.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to do.
No,
and I don't just mean hitting the shots. I mean, just like hitting the shots, maintaining the damage uptick necessary while also avoiding death to overcome the healing of the Mercy. But it's a very solid choice for them in terms of map.
It is. You know, I like the way you put that. It's not like, you know, you just pick a hit scan and it's like, oh, Pharah problem solved. No, it's not like that at all. It's really that, you know, like these hit scan characters are kind of like your last ditch effort to try and take her out of the sky because it's just so difficult, especially with that Mercy pocket, which I'm sure we're going to see if they decide to go for the Pharah pick, which I really would be surprised if we don't see it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the Sombra, it was okay. I don't think it was the most effective Sombra. I think some of those EMPs, I know I mentioned, were just a little bit mistimed. And the cardinal sin, I think, of Sombra play is not being able to really get a ton of value out of the EMPs, right? Because they are so strong. But it looks like Nutty will be starting on the Sombra here on the attack. It's, you know, it's not the decision I would have made, but Altera Orion, they know their team far better than I do. So I'll trust them in their decision-making process. The one who I think is going to have a little bit of a hard time here is actually Myth, who's coming out on the Widowmaker. It's a bit difficult to be an attacking Widowmaker on Eichenwald. There's not as many decent sightlines as you would think, at least not until you actually get under the initial bridge choke point there.
Yeah, you're right. You know, the attack Widow to me kind of falls in the same category as the attack Bastion. You can do it, but it's risky, I think. Myth did flirt with the idea of going over to that Tracer, but they're back on the Widow. So it looks like they are going to stick around with this. David Enzo takes a shot to the face, presumably from that Widow. I don't think anyone else is going to burst that damage down quite that quickly. As they back up to point, they're going to start to set up, and Myth does eventually go back over to the Tracer, probably just looking for that initial shot. And Nutty Nancer, crucially, going over to the Echo. Haven't seen them play that yet, so I'm excited to see how versatile they're going to be with this choice.
A complete shifting of the boards here, Jungle God, in terms of these DPS picks, and I think a very wise one indeed. I mean, look at the poke damage, and that huge anti as well.
Yeah, that anti was absolutely massive. It's going to result in David Enzo getting demeched, and that is a huge boon for Altera Orion. They're going to be able to remove them from the fight and start to push in with relative impunity once again. Now that Mazzino is out, Nutty Nanza is really free to start raining as much damage as they want. And with the percentage going up, deinial Esports isn't even going to try and contest.
That's a rough first point there. 5 minutes, 30 seconds in the time bank on the tail end of that, and Altera still dying here, which means that those spawns are just getting delayed more and more. I mean, all that translates into is additional push distance here before you can reset your defensive line. Nutty Nanza already at 84% on the ult here for the Echo, and on top of that, Natsuki already pocketing the nano boost. A very rough start here for deinial Esports.
Yeah, it certainly is, but they do have some signs of hope. Caird has this amplification matrix ready to go, and that can cause a lot of problems, especially if they time it just right. But it's going to be hard to pin down any one player on Altera Orion's team. As we see, there's a counter pick on each side, but crucially, Gift down from Altera Orion could cause problems. Nano Boost committed onto Myth, and now this electrified Tracer is doing so much damage in the backline. SR Freezy already down. Point has started to move under the control of deinial Esports, but they seem to have left some of the members out to dry, and without Cairn to keep healing this team, the damage coming in from Altera Orion could really start to become a problem as we see them starting to light up the kill feed.
Yeah, I thought for a second Altera was going to be in some serious trouble right there because we saw deinial clapping back a little bit on the Tracer, but they did a good job regrouping. I think they had slightly overextended and were getting punished for it. Ult differential still favoring Altera Hill as well, which means I think we're in for another rough fight.
Ooh, and it's going to start off with a Deadeye onto Kip as well, right when they pop that Valkyrie as well. That is a huge boon for deinial Esports. They need this kind of win right now to bring them back in the fight. The Shatter doesn't result in any kills, but they're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on this high ground and push out Ego as well. Karen is out of the fight, though, for deinial Esports, so this isn't looking quite as good as it was a moment ago, but they have a counter pick onto Natsuki, and they had that nano boost ready to go. Pulse Bomb comes in, doesn't find anything, and now a lot of pressure being put on the members of deinial Esports to try and stay alive. Pulse Bomb is ready to go from mid. Can they find a stick target? They're going to chase the Tracer out from the other side, but they're forced to use that recall to get away. Here comes the stick. It doesn't result in a kill, but deinial Esports holding on strong to this defense.
They are holding on strong to this defense. It was a good kind of recontest from them, a fight that they went into slightly disadvantaged, but that huge early pick onto Kip really set the stage for them to do a ton of work on the other side. Mazzino actually coming up on yet another Deadeye here, which is going to be really effective from this high ground positioning. They got to be careful, though. This is always a bit of a difficult position to take if you really only have one sort of range DPS, because if a team slips underneath or you lose somebody early like that, this can be a difficult defense indeed.
That it can, but once again, they find the first pick onto Kip, and the pick onto Natsuki follows just after that. There's no supports at all for Altera Orion, so this fight going handily the way of deinial.
But the cart was going forward there. They nearly got a little bit tricked out. I do appreciate, though, the call for the aggression onto Natsuki like that at the tail end. Just get rid of both the supports, taking advantage of the fact that Natsuki seems to have kind of really off positioning in the sense that they try and play very far away from their team, which usually would not be so much of a problem, except they're doing such a good job of kind of following up hard onto it, not giving the Ana any room to breathe. And I mean, it's one of the most difficult aspects of playing a good Ana, actually, is just knowing where to put yourself so that you're both safe and kind of, you know, out of danger, but also close enough that you can get back to the team if somebody comes after you. It's been a bit of a struggle here for Natsuki on this one.
That's true. It is such a fine line to walk between having effectiveness and staying alive. Deadeye popped by Mazzino. It's not going to find anybody else, but it does stave off the aggression from Altera Orion, at least momentarily. deinial winning the Tracer duel with a little bit of help from David Enzo right there, and with a nice looking ult bank as well. deinial Esports has a strong chance to hold, especially now that Myth is out of the fight. They're going to be back in it very soon, though. We've got a duplicate committed as well as a minefield in this hallway here, but the Shatter comes in to try and once again stave off aggression, but the duplicated Shatter is going to get more value as Nutty Nanta finds a nice fire strike right there. Now Altera Orion going to be able to get this card back under their control and likely capture it and see third point.
That was an amazing play, actually, by Altera Orion. I don't know who picked that up. I think it was Tim Plays coming in. Huge play to trap them in that room like that. Still a huge fight to go here, though.
That there is. They are able to come out and recontest one more time. The spawn advantage was in their favor, and so is the self-destruct. David Enzo catching two. A res is there, but in the meantime, they're able to take another member out of the fight, and that's going to do it. deinial Esports going to hold on, and with less than 30 seconds to go, Altera Orion really needs an answer to this if they hope to see point 3.
Myth doing a good job of fighting that one out, but I mean 15 seconds left on the clock. Myth is the only person I think who's in a position to touch, and they have to get through basically the entire enemy team to make it back to the point. Tim Plays could also be in position to get rolling here, and that will be who starts the contest.
Yeah, that it will, but they're going to have to get some support from their team before they fall. It wasn't quite there in time with overtime taking over. Can anybody else touch it? Doesn't look like it. And deinial Esports going to be able to hold on right before second point ends.
I'll be honest with you, Joel. I'm actually a little disappointed that Altera Orion didn't take that second point, because what they did on the staircase up by the bridge, man, that was clean as clean could be. That was amazing. Yeah. They caught them in there, and I wanted to talk about it more, but we got such a quick re-engage thanks to spawn advantage out of deinial that I didn't. But they did such a good job of using that minefield to basically just pin deinial Esports in, and then just went to town after that. I mean, they got him in there. They got the bomb off. They had the charge coming in on the front line with the Reinhardt, the Shatter that went in. It was all very well done. But that was a really good illustration of the inherent effectiveness of ult advantage and how spawn advantage and how important that is for a team. I mean, it was amazing how fast deinial was able to re-engage on the back of that and hold on to it. And I mean, a lot of credit to David Enzo for the perfectly placed Diva Bomb that just arced through that window. You could not have asked for a more perfect looking Diva Bomb in that circumstance. But now Altera will take over on the defense. They're coming out with Nutty again on the Echo. I think that's a really good call. I'm a little bit worried about how the double bubble is going to engage onto this deinial setup, especially with deinial himself playing that Mei. That's going to make life a little bit difficult here for Tim Plays.
Yeah, that certainly is. You know, I wouldn't say that by any means Winston is a glass cannon, but he doesn't have the same survivability that Wrecking Ball has. So these engagements are going to have to be crisp and clean from Tim Plays. But already the support line from Altera Orion is down. And with that, the levee breaks, the water starts rushing in, and deinial Esports is going to be able to just walk onto this first point and take it for their own.
Oh my lord, yeah, Led Zeppelin gonna write a song about that for sure. That's done and dusted right there. There was nothing they could do, honestly. Of all the things that you could have at the start of the fight, getting your supports just bodied within the first 30 seconds of kind of the entire attack is really grim. And interestingly enough, they actually completed that 11 seconds faster than Altera Orion. So first point, basically nothing but a minor speed bump here for these two teams.
Yeah, exactly. Engagement starting out once again now, a little bit after, right before this card starts to get underway. Crucially, David Enzo is out of their mech, and that focusing beam has their name written all over it. Now Nutty Nansa has their sights set on another member of deinial Esports, but they were able to back off into this castle and start to fortify in there, but they're moving back to point now to try and get this card under their control.
Yeah, it was a good read to duck into the castle like that to avoid some of the fire from Nutty Nansa, and Tim Plays unfortunately getting caught out of position and brought down as well. They've got both of their tanks kind of trapped back here, and they're going to lose them both in this kind of rotation, sort of poke phase engage, and that's just going to be free space here for deinial. And I mean, there's not a lot of room to run here, right? Altera Orion wants to take an engage under this bridge, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but it is going to be a nice place for Altera Orion to engage. They have let it already move past that, though, so now they're going to have to try and win this high ground battle, but the Deadeye from Mazzino is going to make them all run and hide. So they've got to wait for just another moment, and in the meantime, this card has been moving under with no real contest being made by Altera Orion. Now that it's at victory's door for deinial Esports, they've got to come up with something big. The duplicate doesn't yield anything. The Reinhardt fades back into an Echo, and with that, Karen is able to find a pick, but the Pulse Bomb connects as well. And now the fight, at some point, is going to have to eventually move to point. There is a little bit of a duel happening there at the moment, but the main fight still on this high ground. Self-destruct doesn't catch anything.
Yeah, it's kind of a classic sort of problem, right? I mean, you don't want to give up the high ground, but at the same point in time, you do have to kind of protect the point. And it looks like Altera Orion was willing to make that sacrifice on cart progress to maintain control of the high ground. So ultimately, this is a bit of a gamble, and the gamble has paid off here. They just need to continue to maintain this high ground control, because if they can't hold on to it, if deinial takes that high ground back from them, it does feel like they've wasted a lot of time, and they've wasted or not a lot of time, they've wasted a lot of distance here.
Yeah, that they have, but a nice engagement there from Tim Plays. It's gonna force out Mazzino, and now Tim Plays moving over to the point. They're gonna start to make this engagement right here, force deinial Esports to fight down on this point. The self-destruct from Ego is massive, though. The sleep allows them to get Manu out of the fight, and that is a huge boon for them. But Mazzino, not to be outdone, he takes out Tim Plays, so it's not over yet for deinial Esports. They're still in this fight, but they are going to back up, especially after Mazzino is picked out by an excellent shot from Natsuki.
Yeah, it was really well done. Now they just have to do that like 4 or 5 more times. So
Right.
not all of them are going to have Sleep Diva bombs in them, unfortunately. Myth here nearly at the Pulse Bomb, which will be useful. They got to be, Deinial Esports have to be careful in these poke phases, though, because I feel like they've lost a couple of people kind of at the tail end of fights and the early stages of the fights, and those are time wasters. That's the kind of thing that Altera really wants.
Yeah, and that's where this Altera composition really shines as well. During these rotations, not when you get to the point. When you get to the point, it is all deinial's game all day. And that is exactly what we're seeing happening right now. Nanoboost committed onto Ego, but that's only going to allow them to do so much, but they do quite a bit. Karen removed from the fight. Sound Barrier has to be committed by SR Freezy as well. Mazzino, though, still on the prowl. They're able to take Ego out of the fight, and now with most of the backline falling as well for Altera Orion, this point is moving under deinial's control, and they are on the brink of capturing it, and that's going to do it. deinial going to go up 2-0 in this first to 3.
Whew. Again, respawn advantage, huge thing to have to deal with, and they did a very good job of kind of counteracting that right there. I thought for a second Altera Orion was going to wrench that one back around, but SR Freezy here, by the way, with the rare Lucio play of the game. We don't see that very often. A very solid boot right there, actually, to take Tim Plays out of that fight. And when you think about it, Juggle, that's a huge pick, actually, because no one is more of a stall god, even on that particular point, than Wrecking Balls. So huge read to get him off the edge. But, again, poor Altera Orion, I feel like they're very close here, right? They've held Deinial kind of on the belt. They're not quite giving it away. It's just that they keep losing out, especially at the tail end of some of these scenarios. They just cannot seem to quite meet the level of the 9-0 team, which perhaps is not surprising. But, again, Altera has made great plays. They can catch up here. I just don't know if they will be able to in the time frame they have left, which is really, only one more map.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, another thing that I think bears mentioning is the fact that I don't think we saw that many adjustments coming out from Altera Orion. I would like to see a little bit more from them, maybe some compositional glitches. But let's take a look at the Tracer difference right now. Myth versus deinial. Myth leading in the damage and leading in actually pretty much all of the stats, but deinial doing a good job for their team still. Able to hold on. Excellent play there from Myth. You've got to hand it to both of these Tracers.
So it's the most important statistic I think here to look at of this is the one where Myth has the widest lead, which is final blows for 10. It really shows you how much of a sort of key player Myth is for the team and their attacking compositions. Myth always seems to be in the back line, always seems to be there to follow up with the damage. Just a constant harassing force, will not be ignored. And I think that's really quite impressive, right? He seems to, it's just kind of the driving engine, I think, to complement Nutty Nanza on the top deck, right, with the aerial damage. Myth is doing a really good job on the follow-up on the ground. Unfortunately, though, it's more than just DPS, right, that do make it at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And so far, it's been just the team difference for deinial. They've been able to play much more cohesively. But we're going to take a short break, but right after that, we're going to be back in the action with our potentially final payload map, Junkertown. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a flash.
They did find Cucumber, but he's going to lift him.
Oh, Vulcan gets caught right into that, and Speed is going to be able to follow up. Talking about jumping over to the Doofus, talking about playing into the Doofus.
A manos de la bola. Ya son 3 las picks que conseguía el equipo de British Hurricane.
We need your help to decide our Opinion Outpost MVP of the match.
He's got a minute to kind of work some sort of pick against this Doc, and oh my good lord, he just got eviscerated. See?
Oh! He's not dead! Hey, now he's dead!
Holy cow, I've never seen someone get so aggressive.
Oh, catches their opponent outside of the building, and that is it!
It's Rocket League Wednesday on the High School Esports League home room. I am, as the kids say, vibing right now.
This is just fumes for them, while Pharaoh rips shot after shot after shot of the back of them.
Good wall towards site, but it's already been broken, so they can't even get that spike down trustedly. Camera over towards site, and again, it's getting all that information. Ebot going absolutely massive!
Here in this map number 4 season, up on championship point, being up 2-1. Nifty dropped down to 19 HP. Joker with his M13 in hand is just trying to hold the angles.
My mind is a minefield. Watch your step, that's not a threat, no. My heart is a house of cards. They had those shaky hands, they let me fall apart. And I know it shows, yeah. You keep me on my toes, yeah. Just one more song, yeah. Play it till I'm gone. When I start sinking, all my demons start creeping in. When I start breaking, will you be waiting? Pick me up and put me back together again. See what I see, yeah, you could save me. Got me out of my mind, tongue-tied, hypnotized, but it feels alright. Just scared 'cause I want you. You brought me back to life. Now I'm terrified, and I know it shows, yeah. You keep me on my toes, yeah. Just one more song, yeah.
Healing that was coming up from them. And then the Ana goes down after that, and it was just quick cleanup. Resignations and Witty Wave really clutching out in the DPS department for SM, and they've got first capture crossing 15%. Ultimate's coming up online already. You're going to have Deadeye, and look, we've got Grab Dragons available for that test.
Oh, and they're gonna waste no time in committing it. The Graviton comes out. It was there, but it's not gonna get any.
So excited. Thank you so much, Cybjorn. Living up to the beautiful strats from More Esports. They're gonna go ahead and teleport directly onto the point. So they will be meeting them tantamount.
Nothing to try and eat it with, nothing to stave it off, no support ultimates. They've got a shatter, it might just have to be put in to keep the bashing ult, but they don't care about this bashing ult. They've got a Batiste!
Oh man, this is just nutty right now.
This is not something that you want to push in on, but it's going to be the bomb and the charges to mention picks at 3. All of the 3 that you want, the Reinhardt, both of the supports, and this is the fight done already. Frost
Here it comes.
It does does pull out the Transcendence, but the anti-mid gets...
Here comes back on the Doomfist, not hacked up by the EMP critically. Stardrummer has the Deadeye, no hack this time around. Stardrummer gonna clean up the fight, get 3, get the Electric Cowboy for dancing effect.
This might be the best map for that in all of Overwatch as we see the hook shot and
Bane with the silk thread shot going on.
Isn't gonna work really well against the Ghost Confar as fine the but you're not gonna get through this.
I love watching teams that I haven't seen play before play. It's always thrilling.
Round 1.
It really is. It's wild cards, you know, it's something you don't get to see at the higher levels. You know, everybody's, you know, at least been seen usually at lower level matches. So this is always a fun experience.
Hello and welcome back, everybody. We are ready to head straight into Junkertown, what could be our third and final map. Altera Orion now behind deinial Esports 2-0. And I think this is another fantastic pick from Altera Orion. This really favors the kind of compositions they like to run. And in particular, I think we're probably going to see some snipers come out for a little bit longer than they have in the past.
Well, that has kind of been what Junkertown has become infamous for, right, in recent memory. It used to be infamous because it was sort of the original pirate ship map in a lot of ways, but nowadays it was very sniper heavy, and I think, you know, DPS on both sides of the ball here have showed us an interest in playing snipers. They've never really fully kind of given themselves over to the role. I think you could very easily see that, especially on the initial stage. It also can be used for flyers, though, which is something that has been useful for that Altera Orion side. I mean, overall as a map pick, I just don't know. I see why they would pick it, Juggle, but I do have some skepticism. I think that just as a map, Junkertown can be particularly challenging for a lot of reasons, and it's not necessarily where I would go on an escort side.
It is a very, very long map, and that is one big challenge, I think, here. You know, if you pick this, you have to feel very confident in your chances of finishing with time, I think. And both teams look as though they're going to run out with some variation of a Wrecking Ball Sigma composition, and I like this look on Junkertown.
Yeah, and they're both showing us early snipers as well. Mazzino here on the Hanzo, you know, a very solid pick, especially for this initial stage. deinial coming out on the Tracer. I also really agree with that. It's been a very solid hero for them across this, and plus the mobility very useful here as well. Myth coming out on the Widowmaker should have a slight advantage over Mazzino, all things considered, but again, it's always a bit hard to directly compare that matchup until you see both players actually going at it. Who I am worried about, obviously, Karen Gorm and Natsuki are very vulnerable in this setup, so a lot of pressure on Kip and Freezy to keep them alive here.
Yeah, there certainly is, and this is going to be a great opportunity to see Manu on the Wrecking Ball now. We've only haven't seen them on this pick yet, so I'm excited to see what kind of work they can get done. Myth looking for a flank shot on that. Widowmaker is pushed out by deinial momentarily, but they're going to try and find another spot to find some heads to click. In the meantime, the card has started progressing.
Yeah, Myth's just trying to find a good angle right now, which is always a bit of a challenge, even on a very sniper-friendly map, right? Especially when you have deinial kind of hunting for it. I mean, look at the pressure that's being applied to this Tracer at all times, but a very good kill right there, and now Myth can do a little bit more work.
Yeah, they certainly can. They're going to be able to, you know, they're not going to have to watch the left and right or their six quite as much as they did while that Tracer was there. And we see how much calmer they look right now. Nutty Nanza putting some pressure now onto Manu, and they go down fairly low. Can they get the mega health back? They are able to just in time, but it's only going to heal them up to about half health. David and Enzo going down very low, and they're actually taken out of the fight. Altera Orion coming up with some big kills right here, but Karen, not to be outdone, says, I've got some for you too. But it's just going to be one exit pick as Altera Orion going to be able to capture this point as soon as they knock this Wrecking Ball off.
Well, as soon as, right? They will finally get it there. And No, they're still contested. Never mind.
Wow.
It didn't quite get through. There it is. You know, it's interesting to see the impact that Myth was having there on the Widowmaker without actually doing very much at all. Just the threat, right? In international relations,
Yes.
you have this thing called balance of threat, which is how much you perceive another state's power, how afraid you should be of them, even if it's not necessarily true. And it was kind of the case there with Myth. You were just so afraid of getting hit by the Widowmaker that even though the Widowmaker wasn't doing a lot of work, they were playing very tight and allowing a lot of room for the other team to operate. And deinial maybe a little unhappy about that, all things considered.
Yeah, that is very true. You know, I think it's, you know, you usually think about tanks making space, but a Widowmaker can make a ton of it as well. But speaking about making space, there's been a ton made for Altera Orion. They have removed just about everybody from deinial Esports, and they're going to get to continue pushing this cart. Altera Orion looking so powerful in this mirror matchup.
Yeah, they've really taken the kind of pace and amped it up a notch here. That was a very aggressive engage, and the whole team was in on it as well. I mean, look at Tim Plays right now, doing a very solid job on the Wrecking Ball, just kind of being the point, but this is a good engage on the other side.
That it is. A few of the mines removed immediately by Tim Plays, but not quite enough. But looked like for a moment there, nobody was going to contest, but Manu in there at the last moment. Dragon Strike now committed by Mazzino along that high ground. That's going to cause some problems for Altera Orion, but the real problems are starting on point for deinial Esports as Manu is out of the fight. Dragon Strike now committed this time from Myth, and it's going to get a little bit more value, but David Enzo is there to get a pick as well for deinial Esports. So they are coming back in this fight, and now the point is very heavily under their control, and Tim Play is only going to be able to last so long.
Well, it doesn't get much closer than 0.01 meters, all things considered. They just could not get back in and touch. It was a series of very impressive plays from Cairngorm right there. The double kill obviously was the standout play, but a very good transcendence as well, not only to help keep the team alive in that fight, but just also to guarantee the contest when it was so close to the end. So credit where credit is due to the Zenyatta. Now on the re-engage, though, Altera Orion, I think, is going to be in a disadvantage here. They are just way behind in the ult race because of everything that they invested in that last fight.
Yeah, that they are, but they're starting off with a pick onto Mazzino, so without that DPS, without that big tree trunk flying through your team, there's so much more room to play. And with deinial falling as well, this is Altera Orion really picking things up and looking to make a nice capture here. Minefield committed on a point by Tim Plays to just try and finish this off, and that's going to do it. Altera Orion cruising through Junkertown so far.
Yeah, 3 minutes and 40 seconds is a relatively strong time bank for entering this third stage, and I think one of the biggest problems deinial is having is they just cannot seem to get particularly clean engages. They've had like one that I would say was relatively solid throughout this entire map. The last couple where they took those fights around kind of the garage, it's just a mesh. I mean, it is really putting them in a very difficult situation that they don't seem very comfortable in at all. Nutty Nanza here looking for an early pickup of the Zenyatta. Why does the Zenyatta swing the door first?
Oh, that was perfect play right there. Cairngorm out of the fight. And with that, the levy breaks once again, and Altera Orion starting to push considerably harder against deinial Esports. They have found their win condition here, I think, in this mirror matchup. deinial Esports just not looking as tightly coordinated as Altera. They really have a better understanding, I think, of this chaos composition.
They definitely do it. That, I think, is a big takeaway here, Juggle. They just look much more comfortable, much more in control. The rally coming out very early, and that's actually going to just be a push in from SR Freezy.
Yeah, that is, and that push pays off as both supports for Altera Orion out of the fight once again. And with that, deinial Esports has won this fight with very little effort.
Yeah, not a lot they had to invest in that. That means they can hold on to 3 ults, and really only Altera Orion has 1. It's a good one, though, the Transcendence, so they cannot lose Natsuki early in this next fight, and that is, unfortunately, a bit of a waste of the Gravitic here at the start. They're going to want that one back. I'm not sure exactly what David Enzo saw, but I didn't see it, so there you go.
Yeah, unclear as well from me. Manu does have this minefield ready to go, though, and with Altera Orion looking to rotate through that high ground, it seems that might be a nice place for them to lay those mines. But the rotation appears to come through. Here comes the minefield, though, from each side. Transcendence now from Natsuki to possibly clear some of those minefields from the high ground, but they're still layered onto point, and that's making things difficult. stick comes in. Maybe not actually that time around for Nutty Nanzo, but they're still in this fight, and it has become a nasty one. But at the end of the day, it looks as though deinial Esports going to be able to hold on again, as 3 members of Orion are down and out.
Well, they just weren't able to reestablish control of the high ground, which I think was extremely detrimental to them, right? You want to get your Zenyatta up on the high ground, and this is actually forcing, I would say, just swaps from the entire Altera Orion lineup. Now coming in with a Reinhardt, coming in with a completely different support line of Kip and Natsuki on Lucio and Baptiste, respectively. Curious to see how this goes as they just try and force a fight on point.
Yeah, I think this is a good idea for them. They're really going to force Altera Orion to play out of their comfort zone with this, but picks in either side, but the card is moving, so Altera Orion has to be happy with a little bit more progress, especially now that the picks are coming in droves for them. Dravidic Flux used this time by Ego to great effect, slamming down a couple of members of deinial Esports, and now it's just SR Freezy and a couple of members left on point, but the hack comes in onto Freezy, so they're not long for this world. And this point is down to 0.01 meters one more time. Altera Horizon primed to take this point. They just have a couple of more picks that need to come through, but Cairn Gorm is going to make things last a little bit longer. Can Altera Orion finish with time? It's so close for them, but it's not going to be in the cards this time around. They will have a chance to finish in overtime, though, but Manu is finding value. And now the pick's starting to come in for deinial Esports. It looks like the respawn advantage was just too strong, and with overtime starting to tick down, Altera Orion is going to get oh so close, but stay oh so far away from finishing this point, especially with a res onto Manu now, and Mazzino on that doofus doing tremendous work. That's gonna do it.
Close. Well, about as close as you can possibly get. I mean, I don't think you can actually be too unhappy about that if you're Altera
No,
Orion.
I don't think you can.
Credit, by the way, to them for coming in with the switch. That was actually really well done, and I think completely upset deinial's wagon in the sense that I don't think they necessarily knew exactly how they wanted to engage onto that. And they also had to forfeit their high ground position to come down and fight that more on cart. And Altera Orion tacking up a bunch of kills very early on in that engagement, I think was really good for them and allowed them to get a ton of room in. So I appreciate whoever made that call on their team deserves a little pat on the back, because I think if they had tried running the same stuff into deinial there at the end, I just don't think that would have worked out. But we'll see what they muster here on the defense, coming out again with Myth on the Widowmaker, and we'll see whether the threat of Myth is enough to contain deinial again, or whether deinial is going to be maybe a little bit more freewheeling about this. deinial, the team's namesake, right, has to continue to apply pressure to Myth like they were last time. I think that was a hugely important sort of handcuff on the Widowmaker. So hopefully we'll see that in action here as they get ready to start their defense.
Yeah, and you know, they're going for the same composition. We're gonna see the mirror matchup once again, at least a very close to mirror matchup. Just a slight difference in the snipers, and so I feel like Altera Orion rather does have a little bit of advantage coming into this, just because of how well they played that offense and this Wrecking Ball mirror matchup.
Myth just waiting. He just wants the shot. He nearly has it there. He pulls off almost in the last second. Now there's trouble brewing. Oh, Myth down to 9, and Myth's dead.
Wow, what an excellent shot in the air there from Cairn. Fantastic snipe there from the Zenyatta main Cairn. And with that, there's a pick on either side. But deinial Esports crucially continuing to push this cart through first point. They've already got it underneath this bridge, one of the first major choke points that you need to get around.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting little tete-a-tete here between the two Tracers, and just a brawl manifesting here on the stairs. Look at this fight go into action. Tim plays, getting a good kill there, but deinial giving him barely any room to breathe. Comes back immediately, takes Natsuki, and both of these teams just going to back up here for a second. Juggle, I think, reset.
Yeah, I think that's wise from both sides. Tim plays doing an excellent job there in engaging after that. You know, last fight was about halfway through and turning things in the favor of Altera Orion. They're primed and ready to go in for another slam. Here it comes, the engagement there from Altera Orion. Got the shield bash out of the way now, so that's going to allow Nutty Nanzo to move in a little bit heavier, a little bit quicker. And as we can see, deinial now starting to try and push hard again. They're getting close to this pulse bomb though, and that could be devastating if they land a nice stick. But picks coming in once again for either side. Manu doing a tremendous job right here, finding a lot of value on this wrecking ball, and they're getting ready to get mines. But Altera Orion not to be outdone. They are pushing hard against them, and it looks like they're going to be able to hold on. But deinial has other ideas. The pulse bomb does stick, but it's not going to be enough.
A real just trading back and forth fight, and unfortunately I don't think that particularly favors deinial. They need to go ahead and get some kills to put them sort of ahead of their opponents. They have 3 ults to work with, but Altera Orion has 4. I think this is going to be one of these classic whoever ults first wins, and Kip starts it off.
Yeah, that they do, and like you said, it's starting off in favor of Altera Orion, the first to ult. And with David Enzo out of the fight, especially because they had the gravitic flux, that's bad for deinial Esports. But you know what isn't bad is these couple of picks for them right here. They are back in this fight, and they have started to put pressure on the cart. They're getting it back under their control. It's going to be up to Tim Plays, I think, to try and touch here at the last second, but can he get there in time? It looks like they're able to, but how long can they last? The mine has been committed, and the Transcendence is there just in time to keep Tim Plays off. Excellent play there from Natsuki, but David Enzo finds an accretion kill onto Myth. So, deinial Esports looking strong again. They've got a minute left to try and capture this first point, and they are right on the brink of doing it, and that's going to be the final nail in the coffin as soon as they finish off Nutty Nansa.
Nice, good double pile drive kill at the tail end there from Manu, but honestly, a very solid defense from Altera Orion, really burning the wick quite low there between them. deinial now going back over to that garage angle, trying to secure the high ground early, and they've got a really good head start here in terms of their overall setup, and it pays dividends because Myth is already down.
Wow, and with that, another pick comes in as well. So deinial Esports up 6-4 right now, and that's going to slow Altera Orion's roll quite a bit. They're definitely going to want to wait for these respawns before they re-engage.
Wow, David Enzo has been playing a very strong Sigma here. Good damage block, good damage dealt. That's actually really quite something. They need to win their way back to the cart, though. You do have to push that. That's the only catch. That's got to keep going here. Mazzino, though, with a good kill again early on. Tim Plays dying in this kind of poke phase is really going to cause problems. Oh, are they going to go in for an engage? They really don't have to.
No, they don't, but they are. Looks like it might be a little foolhardy, though, as there is a pick onto them. Altera Orion not to be outdone. Counter picks coming in, but it does look slightly in favor of deinial Esports, and this second section of Junkertown looks to be going very, very quickly for them. I think we're going to get to see a third point very soon.
I don't know if they needed to go for that engage. I mean, it paid off for them at the end, though I think for a second there, it looked like it might not be in their favor. David Enzo with a very good gravitic flux to, I think, basically cut a counterattack off at the knees. 3 minutes and 16 seconds to go here, but high ground control already in the hands of Altera Orion, and that is something that they're going to have to overcome here early on, or they're going to face a situation very similar to what their opponents faced on those latter pushes of the last round.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if we see deinial make a compositional swap a little bit earlier than we saw Altera Orion, just given how strong Orion seems to be in this mirror matchup. Gravitic Flux comes in from Ego. It's not going to result in any kills just yet, but David Enzo does go down low, so that's going to create space and opportunity for Altera Orion to start moving in. But Manu has this minefield ready to go. Could be countered pretty quickly by Tim Plays as well. They're going to look for the engagement on the high ground and maybe to even try and push them off completely with a minefield, but doesn't look like they've decided to commit it just yet. They go down very low, but the Transcendence is there to keep them up.
That was a really good early engage, but the fight's not quite done yet. Manu dropping the minefield in tight spaces, hoping to catch one of his opponents out. Does not work. Manu pays for that aggression with their life and will go down. And then the fight really boiling here. Mazzino trading it back out. Nutty Nansa is down, and now the minefield coming from the other side.
It truly is reaching a fever pitch on point right now. Both rallies have been expired and used at this point, and now it's some storm arrows from Myth that find deinial out. Right after that pulse bomb was committed, Mazzino does have this Dragon Strike online now, and they're going to fire it straight at point. They try to catch Kip, but Kip wisely moves to the side just in time to stay out of the way of those devastating duo dragons flying through point. But deinial Esports has this Point still under their control. They're continuing to move it, and they're continuing to get value. And what looked like a fantastic defense from Altera Orion is starting to evaporate.
They have about a minute and 30 seconds left here to stall. They're going to get spawn advantage soon, but they can't lose anyone this early on. That said, somebody's got to come out and contest this. They've got to get somebody on point. What are they doing? There it is, finally.
Has to come, and he gets there at the last minute, but they're trying for a Sig 9. They weren't able to try get everybody quite off point. David Enzo uses that gravitic flux to little effect. Manu is out of the fight as well, so now Altera Orion looking as though they're going to hold with just 3 meters to go. They're able to start pushing this cart back.
I mean, look at the high ground control, though, that Deinial has had this entire point. They have never been forced off of this position. I don't think this is going to force them off in either a little bit of a skirmish up there, but really nothing to write home about. That said, Nutty Nanza sitting with the EMP here could basically doom Cairngorn if they can get it off in the right position, and I don't think they've trick this at all. Nutty Nanza just needs to make this the biggest EMP of the game so far.
That they do. There has to be value from this, or Ego's Gravitic Flux. One or the other. Hopefully both if you're an Altera Orion fan. 19 seconds left to go for Deinial to try and capture this point, and that is not how they want to start it. Pick onto Deinial, and with that, there's no pulse bomb ready to go, but Manu does have the minefield online, or at least going to have it very, very soon. Can they make something happen with this? Somebody has to touch from Deinial, though, in these last few seconds. It's going to be SR Freezy. Myth does find a pick once again onto Deinial. They just haven't been able to find value on this Tracer. Minefield's committed from both Wrecking Balls now, so nobody wants to step on the point. But crucially, a couple of picks in favor of Altera Orion, and we may be seeing a map 4 here, Corback, as it doesn't look like Deinial Esports is going to be able to push it over the line. That's going to do it. Altera Orion starting the comeback.
Oh man, Deinial Esports did, I think, a very solid job of pushing that entire time, but they kind of took their foot off the gas there at the tail end. They were forced, I think, to reposition because of maybe the fear of an EMP into that room on the far side there, and then they were just kind of pinned up in there, so when it came time to actually contest the point, the only one who was able to get out, as we see one of the world's most confusing plays of the game ever, but the only person who was able to really get out of that was SR Freezy, and I mean, you know, Brigitte, very strong hero, not as much as perhaps she used to be, but there's no way that Brigitte is going to survive under the guns of the entire enemy team right on the point long enough to enable the rest of the team to get into position. And, you know, I said that the EMP had to be huge. It wasn't. It got like 2 people, but they strangely didn't even really need it. It was just like more of a positioning win than anything else at the tail end of that.
Yeah, and you know what what has been sticking around in my head and what I'm wondering is if Deinial Esports had swapped to a brawl composition just like we saw with Altera Orion, would we see a different scoreline here? Because I really do feel that Orion is stronger in the Wrecking Ball mirror, and it just didn't work out for them on that last push.
I think you're entirely correct. I think if they had swapped to that kind of rush and just gotten in there and got on the point and turned it into a fight there, I think they would have won it. The thing that I believe stopped them from doing that, though, was because they had high ground control and they had held it for so long. They probably felt that calling the swap at that stage, their supports wouldn't be able to swap right. They were still alive on the high ground. It just wouldn't have been probably efficient. But if they had done it earlier, I think it would have been actually much to their advantage to have done that. Still, I think overall, Altera Orion, that was by far the best map we've seen out of them. They looked much more composed and put together than they have on either of the 2 previous. And I mean, you know, at least one of those was their map pick as well. So just showing more of a command of that Wrecking Ball composition, I think was the key there. Whether they can maintain that, though, going over to the next kind of fight and Deinial's map pick, that's going to be harder to say.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And Deinial's map pick is going to be the chilly, frigid northern wastelands of Volskaya Industries. So our assault map gonna be an interesting one, as lots of different looks you can see on this map as well.
Yeah, Volskaya. I mean, there's let me just start off by saying there's a reason they're removing 2CP from the game, right? It's a challenging game mode. We'll leave it at that. But Volskaya, I don't know that this is going to favor Altera Orion very well. I don't think this is a particularly good map for that kind of more wild and free wrecking ball style that they have shown. The flip side of that coin, though, would be that you can run a relatively decent Pharah or Echo based comp here, especially on point number 1. And that is something that I think Altera can take some heart from, because I do stand by the fact that they have looked best when they have been using those kind of characters. As much as Nani Nanza was being annoying on the Sombra, I do think it looked better when they had flyers in the mix. And Volskaya, you can definitely do that. Kind of does depend a little bit, though, on the quality of your opponents, especially when you get to that last point, because the sort of what would be the right term for that? Airlines? It's not the right term. Flight routes, I guess, are just not not as good there on the tail end point. But on the first point, yes, most assuredly you can get away with it.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think, one of the strongest looks that you can see on Volskaya Industries is a double shield defense. If you can get a bunker on either side, at least on that first point, either side's high ground, you can make it just a nightmare and a headache to try and push through and get the point.
Very, very true. Very true. The bunker can be quite effective here. You see some teams have sort of perfected the art of that more tricksy sort of, Symmetra teleport around, what have you. But it doesn't look like Deinial Esports will be doing that. Instead, they will be coming out here with a more dive-oriented composition. SR Freezy, again, serving in this role as kind of quasi-bodyguard backup healer to Cairngorm, who's coming out on an Ana. And Mazzino will be taking over Sombra duties. On the other side, Altera Orion showing us something that looks very similar. The only difference is they're having Myth here on the Symmetra. I assume that's just for maybe a teleport or whatever to try and jump the march. The interesting difference here, of course, are the main tank choices. Tim plays on the Wrecking Ball and Manu on the Winston, respectively. And also that one difference in the support lineup, Natsuki coming out on the Zenyatta, Cairngorm on the Ana. It's an interesting set of trade-offs right there, and I'm quite curious to see how that plays out between the two of them.
Yeah, as am I. The Cairngorm Ana pick especially I find interesting. That anti-nade could get tremendous value if they hit the right target. But this Altera Orion composition, much more aggressive, and I think it might give them a little bit of an edge here. But the dive composition does work well on defense. Having that Winston there in the center ground area just allows them to approach any point on this any point on this map that they would like to. Fight starting to break out all over the map, though, and it is just utter chaos. It looks like a death match here.
It does look like a bit of a death match. They're just rolling around right now. Each team kind of grappling with one another to get a slight advantage, and there it is. Manu will die. They'll get another one in there as well. Deinial is down, and that might be doom here for Deinial Esports on point number 1.
Yeah, I think that certainly does spell doom for them right here. They may get a last-moment contest, but I think it might even be wiser for them to just go on the second point and try and mount a better one there. 5:50 on the clock for them, and that is an excellent time. Can they snowball this into a quick fight win?
That's exactly what they're looking for. Look, they've already touched on the front point there. Tim Plays is already in position. Fortunately, there are enough bodies getting into spots here from Deinial that they can, I think, slow this down. Though, honestly, they were in maximum danger territory right there for a second, Juggle. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, they certainly were, but Altera Orion, despite having capped it so quickly, they don't have ultimates online yet. They just got this pulse bomb. I'm looking at this EMP to come online and be very, very impactful soon, too. Can they find value with it? Here comes the EMP, and it catches 4 members of Deinial Esports. Mazzino goes down. Manu follows very, very shortly after that, and Altera Orion looking primed to take a phenomenal time here on Volskaya Industries. Deinial Esports pick, as a matter of fact. It was 6 members on and hardly anybody coming out of spawn. Just one monkey tried to get the point at the last moment. They're not going to be able to in almost 5 whole minutes on the clock for Orion.
Wow, that blitzed them right there. Deinial looking arguably, I think the worst they've looked all night right there. And I don't know if that was because in the changing of the boards when they were falling back from the first point, whether they just weren't able to get their feet really set or what exactly that was. I think that was kind of the problem, is as much as they were able to get back so they could mount a defense, right? I don't feel like they ever really set themselves up in the positions where they want to be. Good example, Mazzino getting stuck there on the Mega Health Pack. We saw that fight going down. It was not where, you know, the Sombra needed to be in that composition, but that was rough. That was, I mean, classic sort of 2CP quick aggro attack, and unfortunately for deinial Esports, they were on the receiving end. Now the real challenge for them here is to try and match that time bank as close as possible and to force this into overtime. I mean, one of the things you can do on TCP, if you do force the overtime, is kind of learn from the mistakes of your initial defense and restructure just a little bit. And I think that's basically the only option they have left to them.
That is a good point, and there is so much snow here on Volskaya. I wouldn't be surprised if we have another snowball from deinial Esports. They have looked so powerful, and they are coming out with a double bubble look, which I think is very powerful again on this map. But Altera Orion, they have their favorite composition out and ready to go. Tim Plays already looking to engage.
Yeah, there was a brief swap there to get David Enzo over onto the Diva, the initial engage coming in from Tim Plays, and that's going to force kind of them up and in, and Mazzino will die early on to the Wrecking Ball. That's a rough loss because it slows down the EMP charge time as well.
Yeah, that it does, and that EMP is such an important win condition. Crucially, though, Tim Plays is out of the fight now, so deinial Esports does have an opportunity to make something of this push, especially because their support is going to come back a little bit sooner than deinial Esports. So, with that, they're looking pretty good here. Picks coming in from both sides, though, so it still could go either way. Myth getting close to this pulse bomb, but the picks coming in once again for deinial Esports, and with 3 minutes on the clock, they're primed and ready to take a time that isn't as good as Orion's, but still fairly good in its own right. One tick already on the board for them.
Now they're getting a little bit aggressive here, too, with the tanks. I think they saw that they could take a little bit more space, and they will do so. And I don't think anyone from Altera Orion, no, they're going to come back in here at the tail end, but this is definitely a fight that I don't think is particularly in their favor. Tim Play is doing a good job of just stalling out, but he will go down. And now it's the opportunity of deinial to really put the burners on and try and cap this point as lightning fast as they can.
Yeah, but crucially, that fight took a little bit longer than it did for Altera Orion. So Orion does have a couple ultimates online to try and mitigate what's coming in from deinial Esports. EMP comes in, couple of picks in favor of Altera Orion, though, but deinial has countered with just as many. SR Breezy forced to use that sound barrier, but now Pip has the rally, and when you ult second, a lot of times that gives you quite the advantage. David Enzo does go down, though, so deinial Esports looking a little worse for wear. They're probably going to have to try again.
Yeah, unfortunately, that was kind of a costly fight for deinial as well. They got the Coalescence out, and they got the Sound Barrier out. Unfortunately, I think Kerngorm got a little caught up, like many a Moira has, in trying to use that Coalescence very aggressively, and the end result was that they got caught out of position by Myth and killed. And when the Moira went down, I think that fight was over. But another attack here, another chance, and Natsuki looking a little bit vulnerable on the high ground if they can pick him out, and a good early kill here on Tim Plays.
Yeah, that was an early and aggressive minefield from Tim as well. I'm not sure that was the ideal place for it, but they're going to be back in the fight very, very soon. They did stall out long enough to allow Tim Plays to come back into the fight, so that's a boon for them. And now, Manu trying to wait for a primal kill off the edge, not going to find anything, decides to go back to point to try and help out his team, but it may be a little bit too late. Resources may have been split there a little bit too much for deinial to really get a good push.
Critical miscalculation there by Manu. I definitely don't think that was one he wanted on stream, because that was a little too greedy with the primal when, you know, there was a fight going on the point. The team clearly needed the extra HP, the extra body, and the disruption, and it just wasn't there. And also, they didn't manage to pick up Natsuki when they split off the bodyguard, which I think was a big problem as well. Now Nutty Nanza has the EMP. They've got the EMP bomb combo, and that could very much put this to bed right at the start.
Yeah, just take a look at some of these numbers from Nutty Nonsa as well, especially that weapon accuracy. That is tremendous coming out from a Somber. Here comes the EMP. It catches 3 members of Altera Orion. Natsuki out of the fight by a pulse bomb, and Karen Gorm has the Coalescence out and doing damage and healing. David Enzo has the self-destruct, but they just need a fist to end this tenure on this point. And with the 3rd point tick ready to come online in just a moment, things are looking good for deinial. They may have a point capture coming in the works, but the minefield causing them problems on point. David Enzo has been demacked and hacked as well. They may not be long for this world either. And with that, Altera Orion gonna hold on once again at the 11th hour.
Yeah, they've done it again, just one more time. They've still got to keep doing it, though, right? You're seeing the ult bank starting to come online here a little bit for deinial Esports. deinial themselves with the Pulse Bomb. David Enzo has the Diva Bomb in the pocket as well. On the other side, though, you have the Natsuki Transcendence, which is going to be so huge for just preserving point control and preserving the team. Not as worried about Myth's High Noon. The Deadeye probably not going to secure too many kills, but certainly going to try and swing in. I imagine Wayne Chaos is super high.
Yeah, and speaking of Chaos, the self-destruct is going to signal the start of just that. The engagement is in from deinial Esports. Remec isn't going to catch anybody, and crucially, Ego ate the Pulse Bomb from D-Nail, so that's off the board now, as is that win condition. It's just going to be up to this EMP for deinial Esports to try and find value, but Manu is just about to get this Primal Rage online again. They could combo this to great value.
They could get the EMP in here. I mean, Mazzino is sort of stalking, right? But they get caught out. They're forced to use the EMP early. They managed to get Natsuki, though, and that's a big kill.
That is, but the Deadeye does find value shortly before Myth loses their life. Manu now on the prowl. They've got the Primal Rage, and this time it does find value. They've opted to use it on point, and that is a big boon for them. Kills coming in very well for them, and they're going to be able to boot people away. Nobody can touch for Orion, and deinial Esports at least has a minute and 20 to try and make some magic happen.
Mazzino with the absolute hero play right there, keeping their calm under pressure. They use the EMP. I think they realized that if they didn't use it there, it was going to take a really long time for them to set it back up. But in using it, they managed to get their primary target, which was Natsuki. If Natsuki had not died there, that Transcendence would have come back on, and Altera Orion would have held the point. No problem whatsoever. They would have had that massive burst of healing. It didn't work out that way, and there's really nobody else to credit but Mazzino managing to land the shots when it looked like everything was about to come down. So really well done on that front. Still, though, massive time bank differential here. That doesn't necessarily mean that deinial is completely done. It just means that they have a lot more work to do on the defensive side. Hopefully, like I said earlier, they've learned enough lessons from their previous experience here, Juggle, that they can be a little bit tighter on the next one as compared to what happened last time on point number 1.
I'm sure that is going to be their goal. They don't have too long of a time to burn off the clock, but both of these attacks have been ferocious and fast, so it's certainly in the realm of possibility that deinial could see second point. So excited to see what is going to come from this. Nutty Nonsa looking off the high ground already, trying to find a hack. David Enzo getting pushed out a little bit early, and Altera Orion takes this fight very, very early, or rather deinial Altera Orion does, and they pay for it as both supports are down and out of the fight. deinial Esports going to be able to walk into this point with, again, relative impunity, but Altera Orion coming back in this. They have a couple of counter picks now, so it's not over yet, but crucially, one tick is on the board for deinial, so they do have a win condition at this point.
Yeah, and deinial himself will get a good kill right there on a Nutty Nonsa. That removes a big threat. The other big threat there being taken out as well. Ego down as in the midst of all of this. And look at that, a good effort by Tim's play to come crashing back in right there. But I think this is ultimately all a bit in vain. Just a couple of members now trying to contest. Just got to burn a little bit of time off the clock. And Natsuki dying at the tail end. Kind of on the stinger right there. Do not agree with what they tried to do at the start of that. It just gave way too good positioning to deinial, all things considered, but now only 40 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, and crucially, there are ultimates online for each team. Altera Orion did a good enough job to at least mitigate that. Self-destruct coming in from David Enzo, doesn't catch anybody, and with this Coalescence out too, making life very difficult for Altera Orion. But speaking of difficult life, the mines are going to make that even more difficult for deinial Esports. Manu goes down, but there is a pick in favor of Altera Orion. However, the respawn advantage is going to greatly favor deinial Esports, and Manu's going to be back very quickly. And that was an excellent defensive hold so far from deinial.
It was indeed, but it's not quite done yet. deinial trying to get in. The EMP is good. It's got at least 2 in there. Are they going to be able to follow up on it? Nutty Nanza will get 1. David Enzo loses the mech. Manu tries to retest there and has to fall back almost immediately. Sound Barrier coming in here at the tail end. Might be able to preserve their lives for just a little bit longer, but now Myth's in on the Bastion, just sitting on the side of the point, hosing people down, and they genuinely can't do anything about this. What is, SR Freezy going to do? Should be enough for them to hold on, so there will be no ticks on the second point. Ooh, it's very possible here that we're going to see map 5 in this series, which genuinely, if you told me that after those first 2 maps, I would not have believed you.
Yeah, neither would I, but Altera Orion, the longer this game has gone on, or rather this match, the stronger they have looked. It looks to me as though they have slowly started to figure out what deinial Esports is throwing at them, and deinial is having a hard time countering the counter, as it were.
That's very true. Countering the counter has been a big challenge. And honestly, just a little surprised. deinial really has not looked themselves these last 2 maps. They're making, I think, just in general, there's been some real mistakes in the decision making coming out from some of their players that I did not see on those earlier stages. And on top of that, I think that their team compositions have actually been treating them a little bit rougher than they were initially. Now, whether you tie that solely to the decision making or just that they're trying a little bit too hard maybe to play into Altera Orion's game, I'm not sure which one it really is. 4 minutes and 52 seconds to basically hold 0.1 and a little bit of 0.2 of Volskaya is not impossible, Joe. It's not. I'm not going to say that it's impossible. It is highly improbable that they will be able to succeed, though.
Yeah, I think it is more likely that we're going to see an Altera Orion win, or at very least a draw coming out of this match. But deinial Esports, they want to end this here and now, and they have the opportunity to. Altera Orion's backs are against the wall, but they do have 5 minutes on the clock, so things looking pretty far in their favor. Nutty Nanza trying to find some opportunity for a hack to start things out, but doesn't seem to get anything. But deinial Esports falls early, so Altera Orion now going to be able to push pretty hard without Manu, without a main take. That is troublesome to say the least. And with David Enzo starting to go down low as well, things are looking rough for them. 1 tick already on the board for Altera Orion. Can they get a second before reinforcements come in? It's looking like they will. And now somebody has to touch from deinial Esports. Otherwise, they're just going to let Altera Orion have it. And we've seen what happens when you do that.
Yes, another very good blitz attack there from Altera Orion, and I think it's almost guaranteed now we're going on to map 5. deinial would have to pull off an absolute miracle to prevent this from turning into a loss, and I just don't know that they have it in the tank right now because they're starting to slow down overall, I think, as a team. Already now getting ticked in early on.
Yeah, that they are. 4 minutes still on the clock for Altera Orion, but if they can finish this now, they're going to want to do just that. The EMP is ready to go, and with that pulse bomb, that could be devastating. But deinial Esports, not to be outdone, they have a nano boost online as well, and if that's committed to Manu, that could be a really big boon for them. Neither team wants to commit just yet, but that's because Tim Plays was able to take Mazzino out of the fight, and so without Mazzino and that EMP, this is going to be a boon for Altera, and they recognize it. They go in hard. They've already got a couple picks. They just need 1 tick. There's 3 members left of deinial Esports, but can they do anything? The EMP is huge, but that's not going to be enough. We're going to a map 5, Corbeck.
We are indeed going to a map 5. Altera Orion hanging in this one by their fingernails at times, but certainly not the case right there. They looked dominant on Volskaya. Never felt like there was a moment where they weren't really in control of this. I mean, some very valid and valiant plays coming out of deinial Esports, but just in general, I don't know. Altera Orion looked really strong. This is quite surprising, to be honest with you, that they've suddenly snapped back into this as hard as they have.
Yeah, and we talked about this at the very beginning of the broadcast, but momentum is key in Overwatch, and right now the momentum is firmly in favor of Altera Orion. I mean, Volskaya was deinial's map pick. We can't forget that either. And look at how dominant Orion was on it. But we're going to be headed back to Control Center right after a short break. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have the exciting conclusion to this match for you in just a few short minutes.
They did find Cucumber, but he's going to lift him.
Oh, Vulcan gets caught right into that, and Speed is going to be
Oh,
able to follow
no.
up. Talk
You
about
let
jumping
him
over to
do.
the Doofus, talking about playing into the Doofus.
A manos de la bola. Ya son 3 las picks que conseguía el equipo de British Hurricane.
We need your help to decide our opinion outpost MVP of the match.
He's got a minute to kind of work some sort of pick against this Doc, and oh my good lord, they just got eviscerated.
He's not dead! Hey, now he's dead!
Holy cow, I've never seen someone get so aggressive.
Oh, catches their opponent outside of the building, and that is it.
It's Rocket League Wednesday on the High School Esports League home room. I am, as the kids say, vibing right now.
This is just fumes for them, while Pharaoh rips shot after shot after shot of the back of them.
Good wall towards site, but it's already been broken, so they can't even get that spike down trustedly. Camera over towards site, and again, it's getting all that information. Ebot going absolutely massive.
Here in this map number 4 season, up on championship point, being up 2-1. Nifty dropped down to 19 HP. Joker with his M13 in hand is just trying to hold the angles.
Heart overhead, and I guess love to watch the way you made me into a mess. Hands on my dress, neon red. You were everything I didn't need until you left. Now I'm dancing around my living room. I get drunk on the thought of you and I, when you were mine. See your eyes in every stranger. I replay the way that we were till I'm high. No, it's not right. I miss you missing me like you used to, yeah, like you used to. I miss you kissing me like you used to, like only you do. You know the good things are never as good as the bad, and your love is better than anything I've ever had. Oh, I miss you missing me like you used to, yeah, like you used to. I know you're gone, and you probably just forgot me. Yeah, you're moving on.
coming out from them. And then the Ana goes down after that, and it was just quick cleanup. Resignations and Wee really clutching out in the DPS department for SM, and they've got first capture crossing 15%. Ultimate's coming up online already. You're going to have Deadeye, and look, we've got Grab Dragons available for that test.
Oh, and they're going to waste no time in committing it. The Graviton comes out. It was there, but it's not going to get any. So excited. Thank you so much, Sidebjorn. Living up to the... Oh, beautiful strats from More Esports. They're going to go ahead and teleport directly onto the point. So they will be meeting them tantamount.
Nothing to try and eat it with, nothing to stave it off, no support ultimates. They've got a shatter. It might just have to be put in to keep the Bastion off, but they don't care about this Bastion ult. They've got a Batiste!
Oh man, this is just nutty right now.
This is not something that you want to push in on, but it's going to be the bomb and it charges a Mansion Pixel at 3! All of the 3 that you want, the Reinhardt, both of the supports, and this is the fight done already. Frost Dragon
comes.
It does pull out the Transcendence, but the anti-nade gets...
And here comes back on the Doomfist. Not half the pilot EMP critically. Starjummer has the Deadeye. No half this time around. Starjummer gonna clean up the fight. Get 3. Get the electric cowboy for dancing effect.
This might be the best map for that in all of Overwatch as we see the hook shot and
Bane with the silk thread shot. Show it off.
Isn't gonna work well against the Ghost Confar as finding people but you're not gonna get through this.
I love watching teams that I haven't seen play before play. It's always thrilling.
Round 1.
It really is. It's wild cards. It's something you don't get to see at the higher levels. Everybody's at least been seen usually at lower level matches. So this is always a fun experience.
Hello, everybody, and we are back and ready for the exciting conclusion of what has been an absolute banger of a semifinal match today. If you are just joining us, where have you been? But more importantly, deinial Esports and Altera Orion are tied up at 2-2 right now, and we are going to take our final showdown to Oasis.
It's interesting. I was actually thinking during the break, where would I go if I was having this choice? And I know that Busan popped up initially. It was actually mentioned in our conversation in between the map. But in the back of my mind, I was kind of thinking, I do wonder if Oasis is a bit of a better choice, just because I think that there are more stages on Oasis that might favor that rush brawl composition that was a little bit stronger overall here for deinial in general. That said, this is, I think, going to be very dependent, right, on stages. In particular, can deinial get the early stage of kind of library, university, what have you, where they can get in close and really fight it out? The worst stage for them here is going to be City Center, because I think that's the one that's going to play the most to the strengths of Altera Orion. And honestly, Altera Orion, they have all the momentum in this matchup right now. Deinial looks like they are kind of losing almost on their own merits at this point in time. So really, they're going to need this map. This has got to favor them, right? They got to come out with a good map here so they can get a solid start.
That they do, and I am sure they're going to have their fingers crossed that they don't, in fact, head to City Center, because I agree with you 100%. That map would absolutely favor Orion in this matchup. But like you said, if they land University, that could be such a big boon, especially if it ends up being the first map. I think they want to step off on their best foot possible, and I think that is where that is going to be most likely the case.
Very true. And keep in mind that on our initial control map, it was a 2-1, and the first 2 stages of that control were very tight. And that was before we have all this time now gone into this match. And that's something that probably is going to be biting at the back of deinial's mind here as well. Unfortunately, they are starting off on City Center, which, again, I think this is the roughest thing they could have gotten here as an initial rollout. And you were talking about this in break, and I 100% agree with you. They have been trying to play to this kind of more disparate style that Altera Orion has shown. And I just think it's Orion's ball game. deinial has just not been able to do as well in these compositions, and I don't think that's going to change here on City Center.
No, neither do I. They are running out with a little bit of a different look on the dive than Altera Orion. But once again, it's really, I think this matchup's going to favor them. But early advantage going to deinial Esports as the Sombra pick from Mazzino has gotten a lot of value already. Altera Orion not really able to push out from this choke. And in fact, 2 picks coming in early. Both supports gone for Orion. deinial Esports looking very strong on the sub-map that we thought they were going to have the most trouble on. 1 counter pick does come in onto Cairn, but I don't think it's going to be enough to swing the tide in their favor. And deinial going to come away with this first control.
That had very much shades of the earlier deinial stages where they did very well, which is where they got the huge initial picks onto the support line of Altera Orion and just took them out of the fight. Myth getting killed in the transition, but they also lost David Enzo's mech there as well, so both teams at a little bit of a disadvantage here at the start of this second engagement.
Yeah, that they are. EMP about to be online for Mazzino. They've got a lot of aggression going onto that backline, and it's gone once again. Altera Orion needs to protect their healers, otherwise this is going to be a short map 5.
This is a very targeted, very intelligent strategy that's coming out from Mazzino and deinial. They are picking on these healers, just like they should do playing these specific characters. And honestly, you're right. Altera Orion, they need to triple up their protection on their backline because you cannot be having this.
Oh my gosh, and once again, they're out of the fight first. deinial Esports seems to have their number on lockdown right now. And with play like this, there's nothing Altera Orion can do. They get a pick on the Cairn once again, but he goes out of the fight to their own hand, it appears. And with this, it's going to be another deinial Esports fight win, and there's not much time left for Altera Orion to mount some kind of counteroffensive.
Yeah, they're nearly going to have Natsuki's Transcendence online, but that initial damage spike from the dive has just been murdering those supports in the backline. They are not able to hang at all, and the ult differential here for deinial is huge. I mean, they nearly have 5 online, and Altera Orion cannot muster an answer to that. Again, Nutty Nanza with the EMP is going to have to be big here at the start.
Yeah, that it is. They're going to have to maybe combine it with a self-destruct, but the self-destruct catches Nutty Nanza out. They have no win condition for this. And there's 90-some% on the board now for deinial Esports. Mazzino is out of the fight, but everybody else looking pretty healthy at the moment. That is until deinial goes down, but the pick's still heavily in favor of deinial Esports right now. It looks like there's nothing much that can be done. The self-destruct needed to be massive from Ego, but it just wasn't the case. The EMP comes in now from Nutty Nanza, but it's going to be a little too late, I think, as there's 99% on the board now for deinial Esports, and they're not showing any signs of slowing down. Rally committed by Kip to try and keep their team up, and in fact, it does lead to a counter pick onto Cairn. Once again, David Enzo going to be demeched as well, but the pick still coming in for deinial Esports, and with the EMP as well onto 10th place, that's going to make it so hard for the Wrecking Ball to stay alive. But Altera Orion coming back in this against all odds. It looks like they're gonna take a capture on this point and stave off defeat, at least for the moment.
Oh my lord, by the slenderest of margins. deinial just looking absolutely dynamic right here. Oppressive. Destroying the support line of Altera Orion. If they can just do that again one more time here in perfect fight territory for Orion, this will be done and dusted, and they're already looking for it. Look at the pressure they're bringing to try and catch this support line out.
Yeah, they are pushing as hard and fast as they possibly can, but it's not going to be enough this time as deinial is taken out of the fight. They use the pulse bomb, but to no effect. The stick does come on this time onto Manu, and that's going to lead to a nice fight win for deinial Esports. But Altera Horizon, rather.
Yeah, Orion doing a good job there of backing that one up, actually, and drawing deinial in to that fight. I really appreciate how they kind of read this desire to go after the healers and tried to turn it to their own advantage. That said, deinial can do the same thing. They just have to try and structure it so a bunch of resources are pulled for the healers while they go for a quick engage onto the point. That's going to be something they have to try and do here, which is exactly, I think, what they're going for.
Yeah, and they're doing it on the back of an amazing EMP coming out from Nutty Nanza. Catches all 6 members. 2 of deinial fall immediately after an early pick onto 10 plays. It looks like it's not going to be enough. And with that fight win, Altera Orion are now in last fight territory, and they are looking good and in control once again.
Nutty Nanza's EMPs have been very kind of quiet all night long, but that was an absolute fight winner, the biggest one they've had. Mazzino now, though, with the chance to repeat the trick. Nearly 5 ults online here for Deinial Esports, and an early kill on Natsuki as well.
That is exactly what you want if you're Deinial Esports. The Primal is online and ready to go for Manu as well. They can use it anytime they want, but crucially there has been another pick. Karen Gorm is out of the fight as Starfreezy uses the Sand Barrier to keep his team alive, and this could be the difference maker as now Tim Place is out of the fight, and without that extra pressure from Myth as well, things are looking dicey for Altera Orion. Pulse Bomb comes in, it's gonna miss. Hat comes out onto Manu, but he's still got so much health online. All players are alive and accounted for, even if they may not be on point. This is quite the last fight that we've got coming online right now. EMP only catches 2 for Deinial Esports. Transcendence is used by Natsuki. Now things are going back in the way of Altera Orion. Coming back from a 99-0 here. It's like the story of this entire match. When Altera's backs are against the wall, that is when they shine. A little hello from Myth on the high ground to signal the demise of Denial. And that's going to do it. What a comeback from Orion.
Huge comeback from Orion right there. Honestly, the key problem there was that they kept losing supports. Denial just lost their main support, I think, twice there in those tail end fights. And I really thought that when SR Freezy invested the sound barrier, I was like, that's going to be it. That they're not going to lose this. They have enough sustain to keep it through. But then poor Karen Gorn came back and immediately got jumped and taken out. Oh, I mean, that's very frustrating if you're on the side of Denial, right? You've just seen your best opportunity for a win slip through your fingers right there. You have to pull it back together and come back onto this next point as hard as you can. This is the one that favors you quite well. You got to win. There's no choice, right? You win or you go home, and they know that. And I think they're going to win this one. That's my read on this site, at least.
Yeah, this matchup is going to favor Deinial more and more since we have headed to this map next. The last sub-map could be University, so they know if they can come back with a win here, they are in a prime position to take this. But this is the first time the entire matchup that Altera Orion has been in the lead, and they do not want to let it go. Point has started to tick over now in favor of Altera Orion. David Enzo out of the fight early. This could be good for Altera Orion. They're going to start to push pretty hard. Mazzino down on the low ground now, and that is prime diving territory. They go down very low, forced to back out. And with that, Altera Orion takes first control.
Yeah, it's unfortunate there. A little bit of hunting and pack from Myth and Nutty Nanza. They sectioned off Enzo and killed him early. Myth trying to repeat the same trick. Can't get as much room. Nutty playing on the frontline position as well. Not particularly safe right there. And David Enzo once more kind of the initial target of aggression.
Wow, and Natsuki is able to take Mazzino out of the fight. David Enzo going to be demeched as well, but Caird has popped the amplification matrix. Can they turn this fight around? The slam coming in from Tim Plays is big as well, but he's going to pay for it with his life after Freeze and a remake kill comes in. And Deinial Esports looking a little stronger after some initial missteps here during this fight. They are primed to take this point back under their control. They've just got a few more members of Altera Orion to take off the point, but Natsuki is going to maintain control over it with that Transcendence, at least for the time being. Can Kip get the rally? It's not looking likely. They are removed from the fight, but Tim Place has the minefield out, and Altera Orion, they may have found a way to turn this back in their favor as Nutty Nanza and Tim Place get a couple of kills.
It was a huge sound barrier effort again from SR Freezy, and his team just could not capitalize on it. Too good on the side of Orion to come back in and recontest. And now you're getting into only a few more fights left in the tank here for Deinial. They have to win this. They don't have any options left. This Diva Bomb needs to be big. It needs to set up the fight win here.
Yeah, that it does. Self-destruct coming in from David Enzo. It's not going to find anybody. The stick from Myth, though, is going to be big, but the immortality field was there. They crucially stay alive. So Karen is going to have another chance to try and make things happen, but crucially Kip was able to take Manu out of the fight, and that is crucial because they had the Shatter about online, and with 90% on the board, this could be Altera Orion coming back with the reverse sweep. I cannot believe what we are about to see. Can anyone from Deinial even touch point? David Enzo is there at the last moment, but they're demeched in record time and removed from the fight. Overtime is starting to tick down now. It's gonna be do or die for them, and Altera Orion come back with the reverse sweep. 3-2 over Deinial, delivering them their first loss of the season.
Yeah, and what a loss it was here in the semifinals as well. And deinial, that's got a sting on all sorts of levels. Honestly, these last 3 maps, Altera Orion have just looked absolutely starving for this. Very aggressive play, very kind of impactful, insightful play coming out from them. And on the other side, I feel like deinial, it was death by 1,000 cuts, just small mistakes here and there, even up to the very bitter end on that last map. You look at David Enzo getting put out of position early on before the fights had ever really even started and getting burned down by the Sombra and the Tracer. And it was just little decisions like that that I think contributed to an overall picture where Altera Orion was able to exploit those and come back for the win, and a very dogged and determined performance that from them indeed.
Yeah, that was unreal. I mean, it looked like this matchup was firmly in deinial Esports' favor after those first 2 maps. But my gosh, Altera Orion clawed their way back into this. And it was on the back, I think, of them realizing that if they could keep deinial in this mirror matchup in the dive and away from the brawl, they could take it. But you know what? Even at the end there, when deinial was on their best composition, they still took it. So kudos and congratulations. What a phenomenal win coming out today from Orion. They've got to be feeling like $1,000,000 right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a very strong one. And I mean, I feel quite badly for deinial, all things considered, but they had a very strong regular season. They can hold their head high on that one. And when they come back in, in the next ELL, GitGud, whenever that is, or whatever other competition they move on to, I'm sure they will be very strong in that as well. But yeah, all props to Orion. Really took advantage of the mirror matchup and ran with it. They looked dominant on the last couple of maps, and it was a very, very strong performance from them. It takes a lot of gumption. It takes a lot of coordination and teamwork to come back and get a reverse sweep in the books, and you cannot ask for much more out of a team.
No, you really can't. And they're going to be headed on to the grand finals now, which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, production, is happening on Sunday. So that is going to be a fantastic matchup to catch whoever they end up facing. So kudos to them. Can't wait to see them during the rest of this tournament. And you know what, Quarterback? That was a great match to start on, but we've got more Overwatch coming our way soon.
We do indeed. We're not quite free from this just yet. There's one more exciting matchup on the way. It's Luma versus Team Primal here in another semifinal, and a good one it will promise to be. So don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely stick around and try and catch that next match.
Yeah, and with that, do you have any final words you want to leave the audience with before we take a little bit of a break so that we can get the lobby set up?
Just that I hope they enjoyed the reverse sweep. Those are not particularly common, so it was exciting to see one live and in action there for us here today.
It certainly was. That's going to be one to remember and to go back and watch again, I think, if you were a fan of this Overwatch scene. So thank you so much for tuning in. Don't worry, we're going to be right back. Stick around for more awesome Overwatch action.
They did find Cucumber, but he's going to lift him.
Oh, Vulcan gets caught right into that, and Speed is going to be able
Oh,
to follow
no.
up. Talking
You
about
let
jumping
him
over to
do.
the Doofus, talking about playing into the
A
Doofus.
manos de la bola. Ya son 3 las picks que conseguía el equipo de British Hurricane.
We need your help to decide our Opinion Outpost MVP of the match.
He's got a minute to kind of work some sort of pick against this Doc, and oh my good lord, he just got eviscerated.
Oh! He's not dead! Hey, now he's dead!
Holy cow, I've never seen someone get so aggressive.
Oh, catches their opponent outside of the building, and that is it.
It's Rocket League Wednesday on the High School Esports League home room. I am, as the kids say, vibing right now.
This is just fumes for them, while Pharaoh rips shot after shot after shot of the back of them.
Good wall towards site, but it's already been broken, so they can't even get that spike down trustedly. Camera over towards site, and again, it's getting all that information. Heapbot going absolutely massive!
Here in this map number 4 season, up on championship point, being up 2-1. Nifty dropped down to 19 HP. Joker with his M13 in hand is just trying to hold the angles.
And that's alright. Running through the last of my thoughts. babe. I've loved you the same this whole time. So tell me, what's on your mind? And I'm not here to hear you say you're fine. I can take the pain you hold inside. I wanna know, wanna see it. Can I feel your kryptonite? Can't get this off my mind. Does it only control you? Let me in, I'll help you out. I won't lose you this time. Can I feel your kryptonite? Can I feel your kryptonite? You think you're too far, but I'm where you are, you know. I said I won't leave your side. They left you bare, but I'm begging you, stare in my eyes for you. Yeah, I give my life. Yeah, I'm not here to hear you say you're fine. I can take the pain you hold inside. I wanna know, wanna see it. Can I feel your kryptonite? Can't get this off my mind. Does it only control you? Let me in, I'll help you out. I won't lose you this time. Can I feel your kryptonite? Can I feel your kryptonite? I wanna know, wanna see it. Can I feel your kryptonite? I'm here to hear you say you're fine. I wanna know, wanna see it. Can I feel your kryptonite? Can't get this off my mind. Does it only control you? Let me in, I'll help you out. I won't lose you this time.
One more wine, one more whiskey. We just kept the car in park and dim the headlights so we see the stars. Let them tell us where we should start. And I'm scared as hell because there's no way to know how this goes. But I can't help but say I promise to give you my all. But it might break me. It might break me, break me. It might break me, break me. It might break me down. I won't let you down. But it might break me, break me. It might break me, break me. It might break me down. It might break me. It might break me. It might break me. It might break me down. It might break me. It might break me. It might break me. It might break me down. It might break me. The sight of you, it makes me dizzy. And when you're gone, I miss your face. Tonight I'll meet you in our favorite place. And just can't let this wait one more day. But I'm scared as hell, and there's just no way to know how this goes. And I can't help but say, trusting why you are so beautiful. But it might break me. It might break me, break me. It might break me, break me. It might break me down. I won't let you down. But it might break me, break me.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the exciting Overwatch action. If you are just joining us, my name is Warren Jungle God Hammond, and today I am joined on the mic by Corbeck. Corbeck, how are you doing after that first match and getting ready to see Luma and Team Primal go at it?
Well, it was an absolute banger, right, over first match. You don't ask for much more than a full reverse sweep. A high-stakes action between two 3,900-plus teams was pretty much peak Overwatch right there. And it was a very exciting game, honestly, right up to the bitter end. It very much had all the hallmarks of an absolute classic here on ELO Hell GitGud. But, you know, next matchup also promises to be quite good. These two teams are very strong in their way, and though this is a lower SR bracket, I don't expect that we're going to get any less level of play here from these two teams in the playoffs.
Neither do I, especially because I think one of these teams, Luma, has a very interesting story. They went 4-4 this season, yet here they are in the semifinals, going up against the Team Primal that sported a 7-3 record, looking a lot stronger, at least if you just take it by the numbers. So excited to see, you know, what this Luma team has found that has propelled them to so much success here in the postseason.
You know, it's interesting. I was actually looking at that earlier, and it did stand out to me that there was that 4-4 difference here for Team Luma. But I mean, it doesn't. You know, records don't mean anything, right? Don't mean everything. I should say they do. They do mean something. I take that back, but they don't mean everything. And I mean, look at our last matchup there as a good example of why records are not necessarily the hardest thing to go off of. It was a 6-3 versus a 9-0, right? And then the 6-3 came out on top. And this is a similar situation. Luma is set at the 4-4. They're still in the playoffs, though, and they still have a lot to fight for here. And like I said, any given Sunday, any day of the week, sometimes a team just comes out and it's their day and they get the right maps and they get the right matchups, the right comps to propel them for victory. And that very much could be the case today. We will be starting on Oasis, which is, I think, one of the less discussed control maps overall in this day and age. I feel like the big two these days to me are Lijiang Tower and Busan seem to be the ones that get a lot of attention, but Oasis still remains a very interesting and engaging map.
That it does, and I like the fact that we're starting the way we ended the last matchup on Oasis. I feel like that's very fitting for our second David Vin Goliath matchup. To try and put it in context a little bit. This is really going to be fascinating. You know, like we've said before, control maps offer so many different options in terms of team compositions. And we're going to be starting off on the sub-map that we didn't get to see in our last one, University.
Correct, we are, and it's good to get to see all three stages here from Oasis on display this fine day. Interesting to note that this is Team Primal's favorite map out of the control pool. They do really favor Oasis, so I wonder if that's going to have a particularly strong impact on them here as well. Looking at the two compositions that we have set up on either side, I don't think there's anything too overly surprising here. They're both going for the Symmetra Rush. Interestingly, though, Fossey coming out here on the May, so setting that up. Meanwhile, on the other side, it'll be Marcus on the Cassidy, so a little bit of a difference in DPS. I think if you were going to comment on any one thing, though, that really does stand out, Roboden coming out here on the Roadhog as opposed to Paper Knave on the Diva. That Roadhog pick is interesting indeed.
That it is. It's not standard, but it provides a one-pick potential, which is very, very strong. So if he can land a hook, then that could just be game over for whoever ends up on the business end of that. We see that Luma has opted to start by controlling the low ground here. They're right underneath Team Primal, so whenever they want to drop, they're going to have 3 areas to start swinging and shooting. Milker's starting to set up a couple of turrets, and it's going to be Fossey who finds the first pick, taking Medalma out of the fight. So without her support, it's going to be tough for Primal to find any kind of purchase on this map. The hook does land, and Roboden finds a pick, but it's going to be Luma coming away with the first point control.
Yeah, a bit of a mistake right there, I think, or a bit of a problem was that Tullyland just could not drop with the rest of the team, really. I don't know if the teleporter went down too early that they weren't able to make it work the other direction, but the minute that Tullyland dropped by themselves, the entirety of Luma kind of cascaded onto the Reinhardt there, and there was no way they can keep him up, especially losing the support like they did. So a bit of a rough start here from Team Primal, but not one that they can't recover from relatively easily.
It's exactly right. Hook lands onto Paper Nade. They go down very low, but it's Bell who falls first. And with that, the floodgates are going to open. Team Primal going to be able to start to push forward, but counterpicks coming in either way. So no tanks for Luma, but Team Primal's down at DPS. So Logan Paul getting some value in the sky now, has their sights set on Abu. Now she's going down very low. She's removed from the fight. And with that, Team Primal may be able to come back into this. Shatter from Fell doesn't land. And with that, just 2 tanks are left on point, but 2 that fell earliest.
Yeah, a bit of a still damage ticking in here from Logan Paul as well, who's just come back and really been an absolute menace here on the Pharah. And it just goes to show you the dynamic shift that adding a flyer into the rotation can have. Of course, it would be remiss of me not to mention that there is a significant difference in ult banks here as well, which could be very telling. 3 ults online, both the DPS and the Shatter coming in. And look at this setup from Logan Paul.
Oh, this is going to be absolutely massive. The immortality field is there. It does keep everybody from going down, but damage has been done. However, it is all healed up in the flash of a second. Stun comes in from Marcus. That Cassidy getting a good amount of value, but it doesn't lead to any picks. Hell's able to take out their counterpart with a Fire Strike, and with that, Luma looking to be doing a little bit better. They, in fact, get several more picks, and with that, they're going to retake the point.
Couple of things to note right there. One, Logan Paul setting up the ult. I agree with you. It was in position to be massive. They missed a critical step there, though. They did not force the immortality field out early on, which is something that you noted. The immortality field kept everybody alive. Second is that Tallyland is not respecting Fosse's Maywall at all, and that has created some serious problems here. It's a really great Shatter to start, though.
That it is, but Froppy, she was there with the sound barrier to keep their team alive and well. It is going to be Talien who follows once again. And with the Deadeye from Milkers, that's just going to about seal the deal and make this point firmly in favor of Luma. There's just one more member of Team Primal on point, and they're not going to last for too terribly long, especially getting chased by Paper Knave.
I appreciate the contest effort, though. That was pretty good. A little bit of like, it was like a whack-a-mole Pharah kind of popping up and down there for a couple of times to just keep it alive. But like you said, I mean, their lifespan was being measured in seconds, right? There's not a lot they could really do. Very interesting start here. All things considered, Luma look very composed right now, and I feel like to a certain extent, Team Primal are not quite at that level at this early stage. Now, you know, stage 1, map 1 on Koth, can't draw all too much from it. It's just interesting to make note of it. I think the things that stood out to me the most were Tullyland not respecting the Maywall, kind of getting very ahead of the team in the engages, and then on the other side, not kind of doing enough to counteract Luma's support line as well was another kind of key error that I think Team Primal was making.
Yeah, but they're going to look to reverse those errors and take this back in their control. Fight starting out on the high ground now. Both teams opting for a dive look here, and I think that's appropriate given the tall pillar we have here in the middle of point. Picks coming in favor of Luma, though, to start things out. Once again, they have 2 off the board, and with that, they're going to be able to take firm control of this point and start building up winning percentage.
They are, and some good picks early on, again, from Luma, really showing a command of the map. I appreciate Logan Paul coming out on the Pharah, but you cannot get killed kind of in this rotational reset phase. This was a problem that I think we saw in our last matchup as well, is just every once in a while, 1 or 2 individuals would get picked in these kind of dead zones, and it really slows down your entire attack. I mean, every death in these circumstances can just be measured in terms of points, but here comes the dive in over the top again.
Hack comes in onto the back line. Dirty Dingus goes down very quickly thanks to some micro missiles from Paper Knave. And now Milker's trying to get some value, but they go down dangerously low. They're forced to Wraith away, but they're back in the fight, trying to proc some more heals. They do eventually go down, but it is still either team's fight. Although Team Primal looks to be pulling ahead slightly in the kill feed, and that's gonna be their point for the taking as soon as they finish up this last stagger.
Team Primal a little bit lucky, I think, to come away from that. They had to invest a lot of ults to secure it. It was a really well-timed counter dive that came out from Luma. We saw that at the start, just dropping on top of Dirty Dingus, and that damage spike just annihilating the Ana. Look to the ult difference now. Luma could really turn this fight around. Let's see how much they actually have to use to do it, though. That's going to be the key thing to monitor.
That's a good point. They have this EMP ready to go. The hack comes out onto Robodon, and they are just about done. But the EMP is going to be successful onto Medalma, removing them from the fight. Robodon going down very low once again. They are removed from the fight. And now, despite this biotic grenade coming in and catching Froppy and Fell, this going firmly the way of Luma.
So I will say, Luma comes out of that in a very good position because they didn't have to use much in terms of ults, but the kind of just little footnote to that was a very poor EMP right there. It was definitely the right idea, but it only caught one member of Team Primal. They're going to need to do a little bit better than that in the future, just as it comes to those EMPs, but still, a very economical fight for them. They've done a good job of resecuring this. You're now pushing your opponent into one fight territory, and you hold all the cards here. Very much Luma's map to lose at this stage.
Yeah, that's a good point. They are in final fight territory. Froppy does have this sound barrier to help them survive if they end up in trouble, and crucially, they don't have that much they've got to avoid from Team Primal, like you were saying. Milker's looking to get some big value with this Death Blossom, and they drop on, but the wave wall is there! What a play by Logan Paul to stop that aggression from coming in. But despite that, on the other side of things, there are a couple of picks. Fel and Ibu combining forces to take out 3 members of Team Primal. With the sound barrier from that frog Froppy, this is going to be all Lumas for the taking. And that is going to bring them to an early 1-0 lead over Team Primal.
I do think Luma is showing themselves to be the superior side, but genuinely, a couple of these fights, I feel like they won in spite of themselves. I mean, I don't know if Milker's like living in the 1880s or something, because he telegraphed that Death Blossom about as big as you could for them, which is why the Maywalk came down to drop it in. And I mean, you look at Fosse, who did play very solidly on the Sombra throughout, but the EMP, wasn't particularly spectacular. This, however, was a very strong play and very critical for the team winning that engagement. Overall, I mean, again, I caution, don't take too much from Koth. Koth doesn't necessarily always adequately predict what's going to happen, but I do think like Luma very much looks like the more composed side here, because they were able to overcome the mistakes that they made and still win those fights, which is very telling. Team Primal might be 7-3, I believe, which is what their record is, but they're gonna need to step it up here, because the 4-4 coming looking out, they're looking like pros basically at this point in time, comparatively.
Yeah, they certainly are. Sometimes I feel like these teams that end up in the middle of pack and make a run in the playoffs, they end up tempered by the fire and flames that they went through during the regular season. And a lot of times that extra process and that extra adversity allows a team to really rise to the occasion and play above where they used to, play above themselves. And I think that's what we're seeing from Team Luma here. So kudos to them already for coming out with what I think was a very convincing map 1 win.
Yeah, it was very convincing indeed. And our next map will be King's Row. That will be the map pick that comes out from that Primal side. Don't blame them for picking it at all. It's very much the hybrid map du jour, kind of always has been, actually, if we're being honest. And is that the pick that reinvigorates them? That's going to be the real question, right? There's something to be said for when you're on the back foot, you go to familiar territory. It doesn't get much more familiar than King's Row. And you dig your heels in and you play around with things that you know how to do. It's going to matter a lot whether Luna is able to come back into this and just maintain the pressure that they had on that last map. If they can maintain that pressure, they just don't give Team Primal an opportunity to reset, really, which is what they need to do. I think you're looking at a 2-0 situation. That said, sometimes going back to kind of home turf is just what you need. It's just what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And like you said, nothing more familiar than King's Row, Scrim's Row, Goat's Row. It goes by many names, but we all know exactly what it is and what it means. And that is likely going to be a lot of brawl. But we do have a couple of substitutions coming in for Team Primal. They're subbing in Gist for Madalma and Titanics for Logan Paul. So gonna bring in a little bit of a new look, and maybe that'll breathe some new life and energy into the team as well. Seeing if these two players can help to counter what Luma has been throwing at them so far, and what they've been throwing has been hitting hard.
Yeah, what they've been thrown has been hitting hard. It's interesting. I'm trying to like piece it back together in my mind and like think, well, like why was Luma winning so many of those fights? And I think one thing that they were doing very well was that they were putting a lot of pressure onto the support lineup of Team Primal. I don't think we saw Dirty Dingus ever really feel particularly comfortable on a very diveable target, and I think that was part of the problem. The other thing was I think they were doing a good job of kind of exploiting some of the issues that Team Primal was having in terms of their positioning. The one that's standing out to me, of course, is on the first map of our first stage of that map, where Tallyland was kind of getting out in front of themselves, and the Maywall would come up and they would rush onto him. Happened a couple of times, things akin to that. It didn't always involve the Maywall, but his nature's like that. It's interesting to note that Gist is being subbed in her Madalma here on Team Primal, and it looks like Titanics is coming in for Logan Paul. So a couple of switches being made here too, going into this King's Rose map. Most interesting aspect of that was because Logan Paul was the Pharah player, swapping him out for somebody else. I do wonder if that indicates that we will not be seeing them trying to run any sort of sky-based compositions.
I think you're absolutely right there. I would imagine that Titan X coming in probably signals a fairly firm commitment to Brawl. So I imagine they're coming in to either play that Cassidy, maybe the Reaper, maybe the May.
Yeah.
Who knows? Possibly even Symmetra. It's a little too early to tell. But I imagine that's what we're going to be looking at here. Something to really heighten their brawl.
I agree with you 100%. I think that is the implication. And I mean, the rush composition is very much favored on these Kings Row maps by a lot of teams. And you see it already developing from Luma right here. There's no guessing as to what this is going to be, right? You've got your May, Cassidy lead up. A very effective one indeed. Fossey already doing good work on the May on the last map. Milkers has already shown a propensity too for getting in very good positions to use their DPS most effectively. And on the same flip side now, Team Primal looks like they're struggling a little bit in terms of their overall choices. The only person who's picked so far has been Titan X, and it's coming in on a Brigitte. So I'm not entirely sure exactly what we're seeing here from Team Primal. It looks like, okay, there is a pause there. I was going to be like, I think there must be some sort of issue, because you don't necessarily bring in, your DPS swap right there, get Titan X in, and then he goes and plays a support is a little bit of an interesting substitution choice, to say the least.
Yeah, I wonder if they accidentally locked in the support role right there, being a DPS, and perhaps have to get re-invited to the lobby. I've seen things like that happen before. All sorts of little problems that can occur. But we'll be back into the matchup soon, I'm sure. But it's good seeing the rush composition that Luma was running out on. I think it's the ideal look here, and especially because they were able to catch off that Tallyland, right? On that Reinhardt, that first choke, it can be brutal trying to get through. So if they don't succeed going through the main choke, I imagine we'll see some kind of a rotation to the high ground as we start to assemble the teams one more time.
I've never really looked at that picture before, actually. I think like once. It's a cool one. I like it a lot. Don't really know what's going on there, though, with those weird obelisk things. I get the chalk drawing. That I've been to one of those, so I've seen those. I don't know about the weird robot obelisk, though, on the beautiful sunny green hills of Albion right there. But
it's very
I don't know.
2001 Space Odyssey-esque.
You're right. It is very 2001 Space Odyssey-esque. It's a strange setup, but I kind of like it. Speaking of a strange setup, almost a rush composition coming out from Team Primal. Just two two interesting choices. First of all, Robodon on the Wrecking Ball is not usually what we would see in this scenario. And the other one that is of note, I think, is Titan X there coming out on the Hanzo. And the swap by Dirty Dingus off of the Lucio over onto the Zenyatta indicates to me that, well, it's not really going to be much of a rush at all. So very much kind of a mixed messages sort of composition coming out here from Team Primal.
I think that's such a good way to put it. Mixed messages. Robodon going for the rotation now, and a man after my heart. I am a Wrecking Ball main, and I love to play him any chance I get, especially on King's Row, to kind of upset the standard things. And so I'm going to be excited to see if they can make anything happen. They go in for an early pile driver, very risky maneuver. They get a lot of shields for it, but two members of Team Primal already pay for it with their lives, and now they are going to be forced back to spawn. Fossey does go down, but it's going to be just one pick in favor of Primal, so they're going to be able to come back into the fight relatively quickly.
It is a good pick, though, because Fossey's Maywall was what won them that fight. And I was going to say, respect the Maywall. You don't have any choice but to do it. Now, you have a May of your own in the form of Marcus, but without that May there, look at this aggro that they're feeling comfortable applying in this situation.
Absolutely. Robodon goes in for another slam. They go down to about half health, but they've got plenty of shields. Aibu, though, she's got her eyes on Talalet, and they go down very quickly. Minefield committed by Robodon, and it does find the Frog Proppy. She is removed from the fight. Paper Nave's going to be demeched as well, and Fossey's not looking long for this world either, but the health does come back in and restores to them. Bell falls once again, though, to an excellent storm bow by Titan X, and with that, it's going to usher in and signal the Team Primal capturing this point.
Oh, Luma, I think, got a little too target locked right there. They put a lot of effort into trying to kill, was it Marcus who was the May that just stuck up in the corner? And as a result, they kind of just exposed their flank to the rest of Team Primal, who were sort of drifting back in. And I mean, you give a Hanzo a shooting gallery like that, and there are going to be picks, right? Like, that's most Hanzo players will be able to capitalize on that kind of a situation. So no one really to blame but themselves in that particular circumstance, because I do think they had the edge on Team Primal for most of that. Robodon here setting up on the Wrecking Ball will come in and kind of serve as the initiator for this fight again.
And initiate they do right when that amplification matrix gets popped by Aibu. She's dealing so much damage now into Team Primal that they aren't able to hold on for dear life. The Blizzard is there, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Take that back. They get 3 kills, right, one on the heels of the other. And now Robodon not long for this world, taken out too. And with that, Luma is going to be able to hold on to this card. But the respawns are there for Team Primal, so they may have another shot at making this work. And in fact, they are getting the kills they need, so the cart remains under their control.
Yeah, I mean, Fossey doing a good effort of stalling right there, but the flip side of that is now that it's just a really delayed respawn for your May, who is a key piece of your offense, and the ult advantage just incredibly in favor of Team Primal right here. That was a very, very affordable fight for them. They have 5 ults to use in this situation. Luma not in a position where they can strike early with their ults either. They're just going to have to eat as much of this as they can.
Yeah, that is the truth, and they're already starting. A Paper Nave goes to the high ground, but once again, demech, but not before they're able to take Titan X out of the fight. Massive Earth Shatter lands, and that gong on the ground is going to once again signal Team Luma coming away with a fight win.
How? Honestly. Oh, my lord. All right. I eat my words. I did not think that Luma was in a position where they would be able to get their ults off first. That was the only way they could win that fight, and they actually did it, so all credit to them there. Team Primal, just a little too hesitant to press the Q button right there. They can't be that afraid. You're almost at 6 ults. You just got to use them early, and you got to use them aggressively.
And use them they start to do. There is a Fire Strike that finds Titan X, but the sound barrier from Proppy doing a lot of work keeping Luma up and alive, and that is giving them the slight edge in this fight that they are going to turn into a successful win.
I'm like hurt. I'm hurting over here. How to throw away an ult advantage, a lesson. Again, they took too long. They took too long to initiate. The amplification matrix came out, and that cost them their DPS with that powerful dragon ult, especially on this particular section of the map. That dragon ult is very useful. It cost them that early on. They have to ult first here. They must start this fight quickly and efficiently with their ults, or they're going to run into the same situation again.
Yeah, that they will, and Paper Knave starts it off again with a self-destruct. That's going to clear a lot of room for Luma to move around. And now, with Fossian trying to freeze as many members as they can of Primal, it's going to be really difficult for them to stay alive. Shatter connects with 3 or 4. Massive value right there. And with their main take frozen, Luma once again going to hold on strong, despite the late amplification matrix.
Just entirely reactive use of their ults, and now that huge ult bank that they mustered up over the last couple of fights, where they almost had a 6 ult advantage, has just disappeared. And entirely because they were so gun shy about ulting first. I mean, they're making some swaps here. Titan X coming out on the Reaper, I don't necessarily disagree with. Roboden will get their mech back and will kind of reset in that regard, which is good. They only have a Diva Bomb to play with, though. Luma has both their support ults and a May Freeze, and they're nearly on the Deadeye as well. It's a very strong set of ults for them to use as we get started here on this next engagement.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and they get started once again with that amplification matrix. Just the perfect initiator. Crappie able to find Talalen out. So Team Primal once again looking a little worse for the wear. Milkers might not even need to use this Deadeye for this push. If Team Primal can back out fast enough, they're gonna have one more fight, but it might be scuffed.
It might be scuffed, and look at this pursuit. Now, Luma has to be careful. They don't want to invest too much into this because you can get hamstrung on these overextensions, but it doesn't look like Primal is going to be able to do it quick enough there. They threw that Diva Bomb in at the tail end almost to delay the regroup. Titan X dying here in the transition, and I think they should be able to hold on to this.
I think they should too, especially with this Noon being committed, but the self-destruct could be big. It does find Froppy, but crucially, they were able to get the sound barrier off, but Team Primal coming back in this with a vengeance. They've got Fell on the run, and they take a fall. Paper Knave gets out of mech, and with that, Team Primal is primed to take this second point of King's Row.
I'm just like, oh my good, by the sainted bones of Jeff Kaplan. I don't know what else to say. Honestly, that's what I was talking about there, though, in terms of getting hamstrung. It was a good play to press, but they pressed too far, and then they got caught in that kind of line extension, and then they got picked apart piecemeal by Team Primal on the counterattack, but they're already into it again.
Yeah, that they are. They've got a nice start here. Paper Knave has the pick, and that's followed quickly by just as well. And now, Luma looks like they are mad about losing that last fight, and they want Team Primal to know it.
Justifiably so. I mean, it was theirs to lose. So the anger that they're currently working out on Team Primal might be a little bit misdirected there, all things considered. But they've got a lot of ults coming up again. Actually, both these teams are going to have a lot of ults now that I really think about it. This is going to be an absolute ult fiesta here, I think, in these last few moments.
Yeah, I would imagine that to be the case. Here comes the Deadeye from Milkers. Cassidy has their sights set, but nobody to be found this time around. Ibu has used that amplification matrix already, too. Team Primal looking a little rough at the moment, especially, but Bell is out of the fight, and look at the barrage! It's massive, it catches 3. No immortality field to be found this time around, and that is gonna signal as soon as this self-destruct, what? It comes back in and it finds a kill. Dirty Dingus is out of the fight. Luma still has a chance to hold on to this. They might have to give up a little bit of ground, and it looks like Paper Knave is gonna pay for that aggression with their life, but they do have an opportunity to hold here.
Can they keep it rolling, though? Do they have the tools to do that? Titan X up on the high ground with this Death Blossom could be a very big nuisance. They also have a sound barrier, but on the other side, you've got the Shatter and you've got the Blizzard, two very, very dangerous, very slowing ults. Titan X, though, looking to drop in and cause some havoc.
Oh, and drop in he does, but the sound barrier is there. Froppy isn't able to hold on long enough, and with that, Team Primal looks primed once again to take this point. The aggression and power is coming through, and in overtime, as long as they can get these last few staggers and prevent anyone from Luma touching, they're going to be able to complete this. But Froppy's going to be there, and she has the sound barrier ready to go. Can she survive it? No, she can't. The self-destruct from Robodon gets the job done.
Oh man, they just used all their rabbit's foot right there. They got no more luck left in the tank, Team Primal. That was very much not something that should have happened, in the sense that I don't think that they were ever in a position where that completion was just guaranteed. They did a good job though of kind of getting Team Luma reeling and then just continuing to pour the pressure on right there. You look at that last engagement in particular where Titan X kind of came down on the backside with the Death Blossom. It wasn't the world's biggest Death Blossom, but what it did was it forced attention to be split in a very critical fight. You know, it's hard to continuously keep engagement with the Intelligent Team frontline when you have this Reaper doing damage to you from behind, so you kind of have to react to it whether you like it or not. I mean, really, it should have never gotten into the third stage, much less to a completion of said third stage, and I'm sure Luma knows that. Now it's just a matter of Luma recovering from that kind of rather rough end to that match and bringing back some of that energy that they were channeling in those very clean, very efficient ult usage fights they had in that second stage. If they can do that, they almost certainly will guarantee themselves a win on this map. You see Fossey coming out here on the Widowmaker. I wouldn't get too excited about that. A lot of team will just use the Widowmaker on that initial brush to try and go ahead and get that pick in. I assume that Fossey will, yes, swip over to the Mei almost immediately, and we will run basically mirrors here, just with a different choice of supports and a different choice of one DPS, a hit scan diff, really.
Yeah, and this is an interesting look coming out from Team Primal. Missing that Lucio in the lineup means that they're not going to be able to control the tempo. It's going to be on Luma to decide when this engagement happens. They're rotating along to the high ground. I like this maneuver. It's going to give them an easy way to move on to point without taking too much chip damage and allow them to really push hard and fast right when they get there. They're in fact going for the entire full rotation. Maybe not to the alleyway, but at least up to the mirror. They are going to be met by D.Va though, but Talonland is going to pay for it with their mech. And now Luma's ready to just drop. And the Mei wall is there, though, to stop it. And for a moment, Robodon was there all alone, but the rest of their team is there to help them out. But crucially, just is out of the fight. And with that pick, that could usher in the end of Team Primal's first push.
Whoa, and I think it does. Poor Talonland just can't resist overextending. And that was exactly what happened right there. Got caught in the upstairs hallway. The Mei wall came up, and it was Shades of Oasis all over again. So a very rapid capture here from Team Luma, doing a good job off the bounce. That said, I mean, Team Primal, they've got, I think, enough tools in their kit that they can slow this down a little bit. They haven't really had a chance to anchor their defense, though, and that could be a problem.
Yeah, that certainly could, but it takes quite a while for that cart to start maneuvering its way around and through that first archway. Amplification matrix used by Ibu. The Shatter connects with Marcus. Just one on the ground, but isn't going to be enough. The Nano Boost is applied to Robodon, and that Fire Strike eats through Fel. And with the Tac Visor now coming from Titan X, this hold is going to be secured for Team Primal.
Well, they're very lucky to have gotten that on the tail end, because genuinely it looked like they are in a very bad position where they couldn't get this bookshop hold on the corner. Fortunately, though, that was a good use of ultimates to turn that fight around and kind of push it back. I actually give credit to Titan X for chucking in the Tac Visor at the end there. I think there are some players who might have held that back, but it turned out to be absolutely crucial for the victory. Another really long rotate approach here from Luma. Now they're trying to play a little bit of mind games with it as well and actually just drop back down on the street, and it looks like Team Primal might have taken the bait just a little bit.
Yeah, it seems that way, but the Shatter does connect with Fel and Froppy. They hit the ground, but Ibu is there with the Immortality Field. Try and keep them up, but the Blizzard is going to end up being a little bit too much. Here comes the self-destruct. It doesn't yield any kills, but Team Primal looking a little worse for the wear at the moment, and Luma on the prowl and on the aggression.
Yeah, and they're just applying the pressure there to clear it out up to the capture point. Unfortunately, like you mentioned earlier, it does take that card a while to navigate here, so you don't want to get too overextended again. You don't want to make mistakes similar to what happened at the tail end of your defensive streets phase. You want to regroup just a little bit. Milker's going up here for the high ground position on the McCree, just trying to set up a solid Deadeye.
Let's see if it's going to find value. The Immortality Field is gone now. Stun comes in onto Tight next. They're getting pushed out by Milkers, but unfortunately they weren't able to quite land their shots. But the shots have been landing for Robodon, and that is going to be Team Primal taking this defense.
Well, I would say that it was a good fight for just exploiting ults for Team Luma, but unfortunately, I think all they really got out of that was the Nano. So you'll still see the Tac Visor, you'll still see the Shatter, and you'll still see the Diva Bomb all in the pocket of Team Primal. On the other side, though, you do have some very solid ults that you can use, particularly Fossy's Blizzard, if used early, could be the real decider here. Just because it's going to prevent the other members of Team Primal from really getting their ults off. So I think that's the thing to look for right here, is what comes first out of this ult bank from Team Luma.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I'm going to be looking for Talonland to try and eat this Blizzard as well. They have to know that it's coming. Deadeye now used from Milkers. It's going to zone people away. Self-destruct in as well. Doesn't catch anybody. Shatter, though, is going to land for Luma. And that is going to be that fight one. Deadeye does get one exit kill, but it's not going to be enough, and I imagine Marcus is going to wish he had that still in for this next fight.
Well, unfortunately, that did cost Luma everything that they had, but like I said, the Mei ult was the real critical deciding factor right there, because it just prevented some of the members of Team Primal from getting their ults off. It was also a really good read by Fel to follow up as they did with the Shatter and just kind of secure that victory. Now you have 3 minutes to complete this with time left in the bank. I think they can very much do it. Already, though, a fierce engage from Team Primal.
Absolutely, they do not want to let them go any further, but all they have to stop them with is a Shatter. But Fella's out of the fight, and with that, it's going to be easy to push in, but the boop is big for Paper Dave. They apparently follow them into the neither regions beyond and below King's Row, but Luma going to be able to continue to push this card. Team Primal firmly on the back foot right now, and Milkers might be able to clear more space with a well-timed Deadeye.
Back up. They probably need to back up here and just get the reset in, and it looks like they will do that. Just kind of hold around this corner. Actually, I don't think they need to give up quite as much space as they did, truth be told, but they seem to be relatively comfortable back here. Again, both teams starting to build up the ult rotations. Again, 3 on either side. Really, Paper Knave could make a huge difference here by ulting early, though. Foxy almost back on the Blizzard here, too.
And with the amplification matrix out, Robodon's shield is looking a little bit rough right now. Crack showing in it. Milkers has the Deadeye. They're able to get a D-Mech onto... actually, no, the Paper Knave is eventually D-Mech. Shatter comes in, doesn't land against anybody, but the kills are coming in for Team Primal, and they've already burned a significant chunk off the clock in this third point.
They have indeed, and it was a cheap fight for Primal, really, all things considered, because now they're going to have both of their DPS ults engaged. Marcus and Titanex both with their opportunity to use them, and of course Taliylen with the bomb over the top as well. Nothing to answer really with on the side of Luma, so this could be a bit of a difficult fight here on this next one.
Yeah, it certainly could. That Death Blossom is going to rear its ugly head, I imagine, some way midway through this fight. Self-destruct to start things off. The shield is going to be there, but Fel is out of the fight shortly after that. There's the Death Blossom. It's not going to result in any kills, but the follow-up certainly will. And Team Primal, they're giving Luna a real rough time here. They're looking confused right now.
Team Primal, though, making a bit of a mistake right there. They used everything that they had in that fight. I don't think they needed to do that. Meanwhile, Luma is still sitting on both of their tank ults, nearly on line 2 with Milker's Deadeye. The Shatter and the Bomb combo is a known combo. Let's see if they can pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely. The Shatter comes first this time, followed by the Bomb. Kills coming in early in favor of Luna. Robodon had that Shatter online, almost online and ready to go, but unable to use it. They're gonna have to find big value with it when they come back out, because right now Luma's looking primed to capture this point, and they may even finish with time. Excellent pick in the backline on Dirty Dingus, and with that, the point is continuing to move. Milkers gets a huge Deadeye kill. If they can just finish off these last few kills, they're gonna finish with time, but they've got to get Taliylen off the point right now. 8 seconds left to go, and I'm not sure if they're going to be able to finish it in time. It's certainly going to be close, and that is going to do it. Minute 04 for Luma, but Team Primal has a minute. This is very close.
Very close indeed, and honestly, it was just all about ult usage there in that tail end of that fight, right? That was the key thing, I think, to take away. Luma did a good job of staggering their ults. I will say that they, the Diva Bomb combo didn't really come off, but it was still effective in the sense that Fel was able to pick up kills. And then you saw a really good high noon there at the tail end by Milkers to just kind of shove the cart a little bit farther forward, get it really into that sudden death positioning. I mean, Team Primal, they can't be too unhappy with where this is sitting right now, Joel. They're at a minute to a minute and 4, so it's not kind of absolute despair in terms of these time banks. Certainly, I think that Team Primal is positioned. If I was to give a team an edge, I would say that I think Team Primal might be a little bit more in the driver's seat right here. But Luma's hands are not far off the steering wheel. Let's just put it at that. Their Mei play in particular, I think Fossey has really stepped up with that Mei, and in general, I do think that the ult usage from Luma has been more efficient, more effective, and more targeted, whereas Team Primal seems to be more of a kind of team that just fires ults as they get them, or even sometimes only uses them reactively, which are both relatively unpleasant habits to have.
Yeah, leave it to Team Primal to be that chaotic, I think. Very, very, very fitting for the name. Fight breaking out now right here at the choke. Marcus goes down low, but they're able to get healed back up. This is going to be an interesting and very different look for them on this attack. Luma going to struggle to adjust to deal with it, I think, as now the Rockets are laying in the backline. Ibu does take Robodon out of the fight, though, so with that pick, it does signal the end of this first push for Team Primal, and they've only got one more shot. They have to reset fast.
Yeah, they really needed to rush the reset there. It's kind of actually fortunate for them that Tallylen died as fast as they did, because there was huge stagger potential right there on the Diva. Instead, they'll get the whole team together for the regroup. Interesting that Luma is backed off here, but this is it. Last fight. If you don't capture it here, you're not capturing it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and here comes the fight. Amplification Matrix used now early on by Ibu. She's going to push a lot of people back, but the barrage is going to catch her out. Roppy the only heals left for Luma, and with a couple of members falling, Team Primal's looking good here. They may come away with a 0.1 capture. Blizzard now committed from Fossey as a last-ditch effort to try and stay on here, but they're not going to be able to do that, and at least 2 ticks are going to go over for Team Primal, and likely all 3.
It's such a hard decision to make in these critical sort of situations, but there is really something to be said here for actually holding on to your ults in these kind of overtime scenarios, because now Fossey invested that Blizzard right there. That would be such an important ult to have in this situation, and they just don't have it in the tank. They're going to get some online, and I think they might be able to overwhelm Team Primal with them. That said, if Robodon can hit a good shatter early on, it might be a bit of a moot point, and they will get more out of the streets phase.
That's a good point. If Roppy is there, though, with the sound barrier, they can keep it up. The shatter doesn't land, but it does hit a couple of members of Luma. There is that sound barrier picked on either side. Ibu and Marcus out of this fight. High noon is called, and with that, Titan X falls. And now Luma looks like they're going to hold on. They're going to be able to stop this march from Team Primal right at the arches, and that isn't too bad for Luma.
No, that's actually really good when you think about it. I mean, that's where you need to stop it, right? Because that arch is such a dangerous choke that if the opponent's team does manage to get through there, you're now faced with that very difficult fight of your own. So, well played by Luma. I think that there was a couple of small missteps in there that maybe made it a little bit more difficult on them, but overall, well done to hold on to it. Now, though, the pressure on them, I mean, we saw that it was a difficult attack from Team Primal. There's only 4 more seconds in the time bank here for Luma, so it's not like they have a ton more to sort of work with in this situation. So it's really a situation in which you can only get maybe 1, possibly 2 bad fights if you really want to win this, because I think the max you can probably eke out of a minute and 4 seconds is about 3 overall engagements, and that's if you're going super duper fast. It's worth pointing out that Marcus was a real threat over there on Team Primal during that last defensive setup, kind of unmarked, honestly, up in the sky. They're bringing Fossey along here on the McCree to deal with that, which, I mean, I agree that you need a hit scan in here, Juggle, to deal with the threat that Marcus was posing. It does sting a little bit, though, that it has to be Fossey, who has been so incredibly impactful on that May. He's the one that has to switch over, but I guess this is what they feel comfortable with here in this sort of do-or-die situation.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. I like Milkers going over to the Symmetra. It's an unusual pick, but I think it could yield a lot of good results. They use the TP to get onto point fast. They definitely want to take this fight early, but Paper Knave is already demeched and the Immortality Field has to be used. Milkers now has that Photon Beam pressuring out as much as they can Team Primal, but they are going to hold on strong. But crucially, Luma lost this fight very quickly. They're going to have one more fight and possibly even two, like you said, but it's going to be close.
Well, I think realistically we're looking at one more, and I just don't agree with the sim play. I think they got caught in their own cleverness here to a certain extent. We'll see if they can turn this into anything meaningful, though, on this last push. I mean, they're going to have to if they want to maintain the advantage in this series.
That's right. They don't want to give Team Primal the opportunity to tie this up, but tying it up looks like it's what's going to be on the menu. Marcus has this barrage, and it looks like they're getting ready to use it. They've got their eyes on a target, and they fall! What a comeback from Team Primal. Look at this fantastic play. Marcus, the man of the hour for Team Primal, helps them get the dub and even up this series 1-1.
Yeah, I did say that, Marcus felt kind of unmarked when they were on the defensive side, and Luma kind of continuing that when they were on the attack as well. I felt like Marcus had a lot of space in which to operate right there. Tallylen here picking up the play of the game on the Reinhardt. It was overall, I think, a better map for Tallylen and just a better map for Team Primal in general. But again, you are the team with, I would say, the distinct advantage in these matchups. You have to be sweating just a little bit here that the 4-4 squad is giving you quite as much of a run as they are, all things considered.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And both Team Primal and Team Luna just bringing their A game out today. I think we may be in store for another back and forth series here after our first banger of a match. They don't look like they're showing any signs of letting the other have an easy way out of this matchup.
I actually agree with you. I think that we are very much in the in the runnings for going all the way to map 5. Just how these first two maps have gone. It's really going to be a game of mistakes, I think, for these two teams. Whoever makes the critical errors at the critical moments is going to lose. And I know that sounds a little simplistic and redundant, but just overall, that was the pattern that was developing between these two teams. For example, if Tallylen overextends and gets killed, okay, well, that means a fight win for Luma. But then if Luma comes in and invests in ult poorly, or Ibu is out of position and dies early on, that's the exact same thing going back and forth here. So I think this is going to be a blow for blow one. I really do.
I think you're absolutely right, but we're going to have to wait for that next blow to hit because we're going to take a short 5-minute break, but stick around. We're going to be right here for the next part of this exciting series between Luna and Team Primal. Don't go anywhere.
They did find Cucumber, but he's going to lift him.
Oh, Vulcan gets caught right into that, and Speed is going to be able
Oh,
to follow
no.
up. Talking
You
about
let
jumping
him
over to
do.
the Doofus, talking about playing into the Doofus.
A manos de la bola. Ya son 3 las picks que conseguía el equipo de British Hurricane.
We need your help to decide our opinion outpost MVP of the match.
He's got a minute to kind of work some sort of pick against this Doc, and oh my good lord, he just got eviscerated.
Oh! He's not dead! Hey, now he's dead!
Holy cow, I've never seen someone get so aggressive.
Oh, catches their opponent outside of the building, and that is it.
It's Rocket League Wednesday on the High School Esports League home room. I am, as the kids say, vibing right now.
This is just fumes for them while Pharaoh rips shot after shot after shot of the back of them.
Good wall towards site, but it's already been broken, so they can't even get that spike down trustedly. Camera over towards site, and again, it's getting all that information. Ebot going absolutely massive.
Here in this map number 4 season, up on championship point, being up 2-1. Nifty dropped down to 19 HP. Joker with his M13 in hand is just trying to hold the angles.
coming out from them. And then the Ana goes down after that, and it was just quick cleanup. Resignations and Witty really clutching out in the DPS department for SM, and they've got first capture crossing 15%. Ultimate's coming up online already. You're going to have Deadeye, and look, we've got Grab Dragons available for that test.
Oh, and they're gonna waste no time in committing it. The Graviton comes out. It was there, but it's not gonna get any. Oh, excited. Thank you so much, Cybjorn. Living up to the. Oh, beautiful strats from more Esports. They're gonna go ahead and teleport directly onto the point. So they will be meeting them tantamount.
Nothing to try and eat it with, nothing to stave it off, no support ultimates. They've got a shatter. It might just have to be put in to keep the Bastion ult, but they don't care about this Bastion ult. They've got a Batiste!
Oh man, this is just nutty right now.
This is not something that you want to push in on, but it's going to be the bomb and the charge into Mansion picks up 3! All of the 3 that you want, the Reinhardt, both of the supports, and this is the fight done already. Frost Dragon
comes.
It does pull out the Transcendence, but the anti-nade gets.
And here comes back on the Doomfist, not hacked up by the EMP critically. Starjummer has the Deadeye, no hack this time around. Starjummer gonna clean up the fight, get 3, get the electric cowboy for dancing effect.
This might be the best map for that in all of Overwatch as we see the hook shot.
Bane with the silk thread shot, showing off.
Isn't gonna work really well against the Ghost Confar as fine the people punching out. Yeah, or you're not gonna get through this.
I love watching teams that I haven't seen play before play. It's always thrilling.
Round 1.
It really is. It's wild cards. It's something you don't get to see at the higher levels. Everybody's at least been seen usually at lower level matches. So this is always a fun experience.
Hello, everybody, and we are back. This matchup has been so exciting, I've decided to stand up for the rest of it. So, looking forward to where we are headed next. I haven't seen the map pick yet, Korbeck. Have you? I'm just now getting back to my information, so a little bit slow. Yes, looks like it's going to be Gibraltar coming up next.
Interesting choice, actually, to go to Watchpoint Gibraltar. It's a very dive-oriented map, right? You generally want to tend to stay away from Rush here just because of the elevations that are involved. I kind of wonder if the choice is being made because Luma didn't like running their Rush into the opposition that was coming out from Team Primal. So maybe they're trying to go back to something more akin to the earlier stages of this map. That said, though, I do feel like Luma's rush was not bad. If anything, it was actually quite good. Yeah. It just did not quite avail them there at the tail end of King's Row. And I don't know if the composition was necessarily at fault or if it was just kind of some positional issues that were in play. It's worth pointing out that Watchpoint Gibraltar is a bit of a poison chalice when it comes to flyers. And I do kind of wonder if that's a bit of a choice here as well. Obviously, Pharah can be quite effective on this map, but depending on how the other team plays, it can be a difficult map to really get good spacing for a Pharah player, especially when you're looking at the tail end of point 1 and the interior point number 2. So maybe that's something that was taken into consideration here as well. I'm actually going to be genuinely quite interested to see what they come out with here in terms of comps on this map pick, especially on the side of Luma.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and I feel like this just eliminates Brawl from the equation for all intents and purposes, right? You can run it, but it's really not done. So I'm not surprised at all to see a different look coming out for each team. Primal going with the pulled pork composition. They're going to go with the Hog Orisa. And while not as common as the dive defense, still very, very doable and strong on this map as well.
So the main issue I foresee here from Team Primal is you just cannot get caught on the rotations, right? That's going to be a key issue here, because sometimes what will happen is the team that's pushing the cart will honestly just get right past underneath you, and then you're kind of forced into a position where you have to rapidly change your pacing. Also interesting to bring Marcus in here on the Reaper. That's a very solid, I think, anti-dive choice, but they're not going to be able to leverage as much damage as at range from behind their shields.
That's very true. This composition, in a lot of ways, it's a little bit mixed as well, right? Because you've got the long range poke from Calilan, but then you've got the close brawl proximity for Marcus. So very interesting. Bell opts to go over to the Wrecking Ball now, and I imagine they're going to be looking to really try and disrupt this composition on the high ground, but they take a roll to the point first.
It's actually a really good choice by Fell to make that swap. Pushing into the Roadhog and the Reaper would be very hard here for the Winston, but a good engage from Fossey. The Echo is actually going to be a huge threat in this setup.
Yeah, they certainly are. But Paper Knave's mech is out of the equation for the moment, so essentially Luma is down one tank right now. And with that, Milkers is going to fall to Robodon. So that Roadhog already getting some and finding some value. The card has moved significantly far, but Team Primal is looking to take this first fight win.
Did you see that huge hook on Ibu there at the end? I think that was like maximum hook range to snag the Ana down from the entrance to server and bring him in. But the card's positioning now has kind of changed the way that the shield composition is going to have to run. You can already see a little bit of the difficulty on the setup. And I was just going to say, I think they need to swap over to a Mercy here and fully invest in the Pharah. I don't know that Titan X is going to be able to counteract the danger or threat of that Echo in the air, depending on how good Fossey is at running it. That's their ace right now going into this fight against Primal.
It absolutely is, and their ace has that has their ultimate online and ready to go. Focusing Beam takes Tallyland out of the fight. Abu gets very low, but they're just about to get this Nano Boost online. Can they commit it before the fight is over is the question. Robodon is down, and now Fossey pushing in very hard, but bites off a little bit more than they can chew, and I wonder if maybe they shouldn't have popped that duplicate a little bit earlier in this fight.
Yeah, I don't necessarily blame them for holding on to it. I think the bigger problem was that they dove in like that on the Orisa. They got that kill on Talon the first time because they had a little bit more room to play with. I think the second time that was a lot more tight in terms of the rest of the team being in position to really watch for it. Fossey still remains their biggest asset, though, as I think the initial stages of that fight demonstrated. Unfortunately, they're at a little bit of disadvantage in the ult game here as well, which is something that's not going to serve them particularly good coming into this next engage.
That's very true, especially, but now both support ults have been committed by Luma, so they have decided to ult first, and this could lead to success. Already Tallyland is out of the fight. Titanic follows, but Froppy is gone as well. Luma, though, goes over to the Mercy to get the res off. So an excellent duplication choice right there. And with that self-destruct and the remake kill coming in, Luma's going to be able to capture this first point. They just have to get through Tallyland. Oh, but they opt to back off.
Well, that's not a duplicate you see all the time. I don't know if that was intentional or kind of a mistake here as Milkers continues to harass them in this rotate. Whatever it was, though, it turned out to be very beneficial. A wise play there to come back and use the revive there to get the actual Mercy on the side back in the fight. So I appreciate that. It was a very clever play. It was well done.
It really, really was. Looking into this next fight now, though, each team has 3 ultimates coming up. So they are primed, each one, to have a very good chance at taking this fight. I'm looking to Froppy to probably use this, this Valkyrie early on, though, but it's Bell who takes out Titan X first with a well-placed minefield. And now with Luma ulting first once again, they're looking good in this fight. It looks like it's going to go their way, especially now that Tallyland is gone to a focusing beam.
You know, it's interesting. That has actually genuinely been a theme of this entire fight, has been the ults first. But I say that, Titan X trying to come back in with Stack Visor. Diva Bomb goes sailing over. They've got no protection but cover. They're able to get into it, though. And they will slow the roll here of Luma just a tiny bit. Froppy with the Valkyrie here trying to help the team establish control of the high ground. They will do so. Milkers, though, not having the easiest engage up there on the top deck either as the Death Blossom comes out on the other side. Marcus gets absolutely no one, but Ibu will still die. In the meantime, Rez back into it, still a fight.
And now look at this Roadhog duplication. A huge anti-nade comes in as well from Ibu to help finish them off, keeping that breather from going. And now with Fossey's whole hog, Luma's pushing very, very hard. Tallyland is out of the fight. And despite this going initially the way of Team Primal, Luma is looking ready to take this point. But they've got to push it a little bit further, and Team Primal will get another contest. In fact, Robodon is already back in the fight.
Oh, but another good anti-nade coming in over the top here onto Robodan. Robodan trying to fight it out, gets crushed by the remech. What are they going to do in the face of that? Marcus here, res back into it, will get Ibu down again, and look at this spawn advantage recontest. A Death Blossom comes sailing in, but the minefield been unleashed as well, and that might be enough here to secure it. They had to invest that ult at the tail end to get it, though.
Oh my gosh, what fantastic play coming out from Luma right there, and I really have to give huge props to Ivy right there. She hit some nasty nades on Roadhog twice in a row, and that is exactly the kind of value that you want out of your Ana. So excellent play coming out from them. They're awarded with a couple more minutes on the clock and some extra time to try and cap this third point. But Team Primal is already ready with their brawl composition. Switching to it early may have been unwise in second point, but it's going to work out well for them on this third.
Yeah, Titan X backing up here. Will get that tack visor online, and it's going to have to be good here. It doesn't even need it, though, to get Froppy down. Good shatter to follow up, too, and they're all in on this.
Oh, my gosh, and this fight is going heavily in favor of Team Primal. The D-Mech comes out, but Ghost falls to Paper Knave. He is able, Paper Knave eventually goes down to Dirty Dingus, but my, what a hold coming out from Primal.
What a hold indeed. Primal needed something like that. I mean, they got close to holding on to the second point if truth is to be believed, but it didn't just quite work out. The ult bank's relatively equal here for these two teams, though. Robodan in a dangerous position, but if he uses the whole hog coming out of that, it's very much potential for a suicide ult. What an interesting amplification matrix. I see what they were doing right there, and, well, maybe it'll work out. Oh, I don't know.
It looks like it got some value. It didn't get kills initially, but there was so much damage coming in that it looks like the rest of the members of Primal were able to finish it off. But they expended a lot of ults to do it, and Luma's looking like they've got a much healthier ult bank coming into this, and they certainly need that given there's only 30 seconds on the clock.
I don't want to nitpick too much, but I just want to say kind of elaborate set piece plays like that involving less than stellar ults like Whole Hog, I just don't think it's worth it in general for teams to invest that much. Think about if you had just put that amplification matrix back with the rest of your squad and given your 2 hit scans the advantage of having that in front of them rather than trying to throw that in on your Roadhog. I just don't know. Bomb!
Yeah,
okay.
Interesting bomb on the high ground. I wonder if maybe that wasn't meant to go sailing somewhere. But speaking of sailing, a couple of bullets from Marcus's 6-shooter find value. They're removed from the fight, but Team Primal has what they need to finish off this fight. There are minefields on point, but there's only so much that they can do. And it's just Fell really left on point, and they go down. And with that, Paper Knave comes back on to try and hold on to point, but Dupist is there as well. They both go down very quickly, and Team Primal, it's just a matter of time before they take this stall.
A lot of attacks do die at this particular part of point number 3, right? This is another really hard choke point to get around. You have the uphill rotate into the corner, and teams can stage a very solid defense there, and that's exactly what Team Primal does. I think the frustrating thing for Primal is that they even gave up that much distance at all, right? You go back to the fight that was happening in the hangar, and for a moment it looked like Team Primal really was just on top, and Luma did a spectacular job of A, securing the high ground, and B, applying their ults in an effective manner to really get them through that stage. And I do think over the course of this match, so over the course of the last 2 maps and that first attack phase here on Gibraltar, Luma is just continuing to show really superior ult discipline. I think it's the one clear advantage that they have over Primal as a side. If I had to say that there was one disadvantage, though, that's been hampering Luma, it's that Ibu has been in the unfortunate position of getting caught out a lot early on in these fights. So maybe a little bit more resources need to be invested into keeping the Ana alive, maybe play a different support. The problem with Ana, and it kind of came up in our last match as well, is that it behooves you to play off from your team, which unfortunately also makes you vulnerable. So it's not the best thing in the world sometimes. A very ground-based composition, though, coming out from Primal. This is some really interesting choices, actually, because you're going to have a devil of a time getting your DPS, like Robodan and Titan X, into really effective positions here.
Yeah, Team Primal proving me liars when I said that Brawl was basically out of the question here. They say, nah, we're going to run it on first point attack here. And it's going to be hard for Luma to really try and disrupt them from this from the cart, but they have such high ground control, and when you're hitting biotic nades like Ibu is, you're getting tremendous value, and success can only follow, especially when you've got Tallyland picking up a kill.
Not exactly sure what to make of this Junkrat choice. I mean, it's doing a good job of kind of warding people off from the cart, but overall, I think it's a weaker DPS choice than maybe some of the other things they could have brought to Roost. Doing a good job of fighting this one out, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. They're able to take Fel out of the fight, and with that, Team Primal is on the door of victory for first point. They've already got several picks in tow, and with that, they're going to capture.
Maybe I spoke a little too soon about the Junkrat. I still think it is a suboptimal choice overall, but the damage output from a Junkrat is just so high that it's almost hard to not get some value out of him, right, as a character. You're seeing a really good application of him right now, actually, up on the high ground. Marcus basically spamming that top-level entrance, and also has a tire now to play with, but a big pick on the Titanex to start things off.
Yeah, that is going to be crucial because there's so much damage that a Reaper can provide, and space as well. You don't want to get near him at all. Marcus layering in some grenades into the spaceship, but not finding too much there. In the meantime, Dirty Dingus does fall to Fossey, so without those big heals, Team Primal up the creek without a paddle, and they're going to back off.
Yeah, and kind of a cheap fight for both teams. Not a lot of ults used on either side. Team Primal sitting on 3, including the very impactful sound barrier. On the other side, the ults perhaps not as impactful, but Fossey does have the Bob here, which could be an absolutely crucial fight changer depending on where it's positioned. An early high ground engage coming out, and the sound barrier invested very early as well.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. The anti-nade does hit, so a lot of members go down very low, and without any healing to them, those shields provide a lot of sustain. Fel now pops the Primal Rage, and they've got their sights set now on Marcus, but a trap stops him in his tracks and removes him from the fight after a well-placed concussion mine blows up as well. Milkers has this attack visor online, so they may be able to still get some value with it. And what a res coming in from Froppy, risking life and limb to go in and bring them back into the fight, and it proves worthwhile because they've got to pick onto Marcus, who had that Riptire ready to roll. And now with another excellent biotic grenade hitting Tallyland, they are removed from their mech. Milkers gets value before the self-destruct finds them, and now this is really anybody's fight.
It's kind of funny. Honestly, you gotta be... tire still rolling in here. This is a very late use of the tire, and I think kind of a mistake right there because Fossey just guns it down. But I was going to say, Froppy, Fel needs to give you big props right there because Fel made a mistake. He bought the trap and took himself into a very dangerous room to be in with a Junkrat and a Reaper and a Reinhardt. It was not a good play to try and get even remotely aggro on that. So Froppy with the hero res basically turned that fight around. Really well orchestrated and good coverage too from the rest of the team. I'll give credit there. Milkers in particular, we saw their perspective, did a really good job of reacting to that res and just putting fire down on the doorway to make it a possibility.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Excellent cover fire right from them. Ibu commits the nano boost now onto Fel. They've got the Primal Rage ready to go. And crucially, they've got Robodon on the run right now. They need to apply some more pressure, though, especially after getting a pick onto Marcus. But Fel is hesitant to use that Primal just yet. They wanted to get maximum value, I think, and here it comes. But Reaper, crucially, has gone back in to try and help his team defend against them, and it's working out well as Fel goes down to about 300 health and is forced to back off and resume this upper-level hold with their team. But for all of this, Luma isn't allowing Primal to get any card progress.
No, they're not. Look at this just nasty fight up here on top of the shuttle. Really, ultimately, at the end of the day, it will be Luma, I think, that's emerging mostly victorious from that initial brush, but they're right back on the re-engage.
That they are with Titanex with a huge Death Blossom. Gonna take Ibu out of the fight along with Fel. And that card gonna be able to start moving, albeit rather slowly, especially now that Tallyland is out of the fight once again, and they almost were able to get back in their mech. But now it's an opportunity for Paper Knave and the rest of Luma to come back into this fight and try and stall out this card, which really hasn't made that much progress yet. It's still been stalled out by Luma.
It has been stalled out by Luma, and Luma doing a beautiful job of just holding ground in this second stage of Gibraltar, and many an attack has died in this hangar. That is a very common fate for a lot of attacks, and Team Primal just haven't been able to pick this lock, and I don't know that their swaps have necessarily helped them over much. They still have Titan on a Reaper here, and that Reaper is kind of lagging behind compared to the rest of the team. I mean, you're seeing it illustrated right now. The tanks have engaged. DPS is still behind.
That they are, and with another anti-nade coming in from Ibu, Tallyland is demet. They do get a kill, though, with the self-destruct, so no more milkers, and that's especially brutal because the tac visor was in play right there. Fell now on the back line, but there's an immortality keeping Dirty Dingus and Gist up in this fight, but it's only going to last for so long. The Primal Rage is there right in the nick of time for Fell. They're able to pop it and go to town and get to work. The card has progressed a little bit, and now that Proppy's out of the fight, there's going to be no res on the board for Luma, and with no supports at all, Team Primal will be able to capture this point, but look at the work that the DPS are getting done. Luma isn't done yet, and in fact, they're turning this fight around right at the last moment. Less than 10 seconds to go, and Team Primal is falling apart at the seams. Luma has it all together, and the intelligent ult usage right now has been thrown out the window. They're throwing the nade, they're throwing the nano, they threw the Valkyrie at it, and they were awarded with a map win on Gibraltar.
Wow, they just left Milkers unmarked on the side. Milker wasn't even really anywhere that was super sneaky. He was just kind of standing on top of some boxes putting damage in, and I love the read coming across to bring that Baptiste down in those critical moments and just render that amplification matrix entirely moot. That was a huge play. Also, poor unfortunate Gist right there came around the side right into that. I don't think they had any idea that a Titan was fallen in that particular location, so very unfortunate indeed. But again, a really solid performance from Luma. Team Primal just got caught in the place that a lot of teams got caught and really struggled to get through that split level high ground that comes in that stage number 2. I don't know, though. I don't think that's a decisive turning point in this match. Team Primal looking a little too strong, I think, for me to effectively say, oh, well, we're going to 3-1 territory on the map for sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, you know, looking back at that map, I kind of feel like Team Primal shot themselves in the foot a little bit on first point. They invested in the brawl composition, which worked well for them on that first point, but when you get to that second, the high ground becomes that much more critical. I mean, we think about it on first point, but second point is where it's the most valuable, and the brawl composition just doesn't have any way to really contest that easily. The rotation to get to the high ground is tremendously long and fraught with danger. And the fact that they had to swap halfway through their fight in second point really put them on the back foot there.
Yeah, I think the best chance they had really of actually getting Luma off of that was when they caught Fell coming into them. Because that was the problem, because that room was perfect. I think they were holding up in there specifically because they were looking for something very akin to that, but it was a good reaction by Luma to kind of come around. And I felt like once Primal kind of swapped, it was almost as if they didn't wholly commit to it because they still kept Titan X on the Reaper. And I mentioned it at the time, but he was just lagging behind. And yes, Reaper can teleport, and yes, Reaper can kind of close distances perhaps faster than some other DPS could do, but not fast enough to keep pace here. Next map set up to be Hanamura, the infamous Draw Namura, dare I say it, as a assault map here on the line. And I think this is a solid pick. I do wonder if this is going to actually maybe be a bit of a misplay here by Team Primal, just in the sense that they're not going to be able to keep pace with the splits that Luma has done. Their double shield comp looked okay. It didn't look particularly, or not double shield, I guess what it was. Pulled pork didn't look particularly spectacular here as another option, but I feel like when teams pick assault maps, they have a plan in mind, and that might be what we're looking at here.
You might be right, and I imagine one of those plans is going to involve a Symmetra teleporter. She is notorious for being used on this map. There's just so many great opportunities. I don't know exactly what it is about how this map was made, but there's so many fascinating and powerful places you can TP to. And so when I see the Hanamura pick come in, to me, that's where my mind goes, is that this team has a TP strat that they love to play. And I don't know if Luma is going to be ready for it.
That's interesting. I hadn't considered that. You might be right. They might have a kind of a prepackaged teleportation strategy that they really like to use. I think both these teams have shown they both use Symmetra, right? I actually can't remember if Primal showed us a Symmetra back on the Koth map, but certainly something that they could bring out in this situation. It's also not a bad map for Flyers, at least initially on that first point defense, as far as very much an option. So maybe they were thinking about that with Marcus in mind as well, and they're like, oh, we'll bring in a Flyer, we'll see how it goes. Could be something else that they're considering in their pocket. And I mean, it is probably more favorable to the style that Team Primal likes to play than some of the other choices available to them, which is, I think, why they chose it.
That's an interesting point. Well, we're going to throw it to a very brief break round while we get the lobby set up. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Running through the last of my thoughts, standing on the edge of my time. Everything I know will be gone in a minute, and that's alright. Running through the last of my thoughts, standing on the edge of my time. Everything I know will be gone in a minute, and that's alright. Alright, 'cause I'm free. I'm freer than I've ever been before. Yeah, baby, I'm free. I'm freer than I've ever been before. Alright, 'cause I'm free. I'm freer than I've ever been before. Yeah, baby, I'm free. I'm freer than I've ever been before.
Hello, everybody. We are back. Lobby is up and ready to go. So we are going to be headed straight to the cherry blossom strewn Japanese Hanamura. So I am excited to see what's going to happen here. And like we said before the break, I imagine it's going to involve 1 or 2 teleporters at least. Oh, and it looks like we don't have any sound from Korbeck at the moment.
Oh, no, there we go. We're good. We're good.
Oh,
I figured
okay, excellent.
Yeah, no worries. I was worried there for a moment too. I was like, oh, not coming through.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say some teleporters could very well be in the cards here. Certainly, people like running those on Hanamura. They have been used to great effect here in the past. The problem with the teleportation strategy is if the other team gets a read on it pretty quickly, its effectiveness is certainly limited. Now, Team Primal is showing us Titan X here on the Symmetra to start things off. Marcus on the Bastion, that could be bait. That could be a serious effort. I mean, some teams will definitely try and teleport a Bastion into various points on this Hanamura side, and that might be the can strategy that they wanted to come in with. But gonna take a look over at Luma's side really quick, and just note that Milkers on the Cassidy, Fossey on the May is a very strong combination to push back against any sort of teleportation trickery. You have the wall, you have the freeze, you have a stun in the form of Milkers, and a lot of close range damage. It does not genuinely get much better than that. And it looks like Marcus is actually committed to using the Bastion. So let's see where this teleportation goes.
Yeah, I imagine we might see something going towards the high ground, maybe towards the backup point. There's an excellent spot for Bastion to set up there. Here comes the TB. The Maywall is unsuccessful in blocking it. And yes, it does look like they're going for that high ground positioning. Bastion's going to set up in that tiny little window there. And now it's just a shooting gallery for Marcus. Luma has to try and maintain some presence on point. They're just hiding behind that bell. The only safe space there is while somebody tries to deal with Marcus. But they're not doing it just yet. But crucially, no percentage has been ticked over either. Another teleporter into the back line now from Titan X, looking to maybe distract Luma. A Maywall once again, but Milkers is out of the fight. They finally were able to get a pick, and this could be the start of something great for Team Primal as members are gonna start to fall. But Dirty D gets out of the fight. Paper Knave able to find them, and Ibu coming back in as well. So this isn't over yet, and it isn't a sure thing, but there is an ultimate online for Marcus now. They're gonna start to gun down whoever they can that's left on point, and that's gonna do it. Team Primal coming away with this first point.
Yeah, I mean, it was good positioning from Luma to a certain extent, and they were able to mitigate a lot of the damage that Marcus was doing, at least initially. The big problem was they just never were in a position where they could push back against it. And now the ult advantage firmly on the side of Team Primal, as well as the mobility and arguably damage, momentum as well. 5 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock, and all they have to do is get Marcus in a good position, and that probably will be it with this barrier in play here.
You're absolutely right. They're going to go for that high grab positioning once again. Titan X is going to commit that photon barrier as well, and that's going to give so much room for Marcus to get their work done. They dropped out of the point, but they're going to be stunned and shattered out to oblivion by Fel. And without that big turret down, there's little left that Team Primal can do, but they are certainly trying. Milkers is out of the fight, but too many people falling on the side of Primal with the spawn advantage so far in favor of Luma. I think this push is done.
Oh, that should have been a W, I think, for Team Primal right there. The problem was Marcus, I think, got a little too close to the sun, which is something that sometimes happens with Bastions. You tend to overestimate the amount of damage you can put out relative to your survivability. Dropping in front of the entire enemy team with no protection in front of you is a sure recipe for disaster. It doesn't matter what character you are. It doesn't matter how much damage you put out. The only person who was ever going to survive in a scenario like that was maybe Wrecking Ball. So a lesson to be learned there indeed. And I mean, they'll get another bite at the apple, and they still have that tank ult in the pocket should they choose to use it.
Yeah, they're going to go for the same play again, and this time maybe Marcus will stay on the high ground a little bit longer. Paper Knave is removed from their mech. Here comes a self-destruct and a Deadeye in from Cassidy as well, but Milkers is unable to find anything. Marcus hiding as well as they can, but they're going to have to make some kind of a move here soon, and this may be what they need to make. Catching a bit of Luma off guard, but they just can't quite finish off the kills, it seems, or get a good angle on Luma while trying to maintain point presence as well. They just can't seem to do both at the same time, and that's what's tripping them up.
They've really been pinned back in this corner here as well. The amplification matrix not helping them enough, but that drop in there from Robodon, it's just missed time. Still, the damage chunking in from Marcus on the high ground. As they draw Luma out onto a fight on the point, they can't counteract that Bastion, and Marcus picks up an easy triple K, and everything kind of goes quiet for a second.
Yeah, that it does. They do crucially get one tick down, but they're going to give Luma the respect I think that they deserve and back off to regroup, just knowing that the spawn advantage is going to be so powerful.
That was the right decision to make, really, Juggle. You don't want to get caught out, especially with a slow character like Bastion in your kind of position. That said, still have the tank ult. Now, arguably, the turret form is actually just more impactful, but holding onto any ult for this long feels a little like sacrilegious to me, so I think they need to look to maximize that as fast as possible in this next fight with this teleport.
I agree. They're going to go for a little bit different TP strategy this time, going straight to the backline. Shatter comes in from Fel, and it is going to result in a couple of picks successful. Once again, Marcus falling early in this fight, and Luma just seems to know how to handle this Bastion pick.
Now they're starting to figure it out, but I'll be honest with you, that one was sort of served to them gift wrapped there by Team Primal. It was a bad telly. They knew where Fossey was going to be. They knew Fossey was going to be there on the May. They had to have known that kind of split was a potential future that could occur. and they still teleported to a low ground. You know where Fossey couldn't have done that? Pretty much any other high ground position on the map. It would not have been half as effective to throw up that Maywall like that. And you're definitely not going to get shattered either. I mean, it was just a poor teleporter choice, and they will eventually throw away that Bastion ult as well and just bring Marcus out on the Pharah. It's not a terrible choice, but it just feels a little bit wasted, I guess.
Yeah, it feels a little bit odd. There's not quite the room that you want to maneuver on this point for a Pharah, but speaking of maneuvering, Tallyland is maneuvered into a wall by an excellent charge from Fel. And despite them getting significant progress on point, this is still going the way, barely, for Luma. An anti-nade does hit Fel, but they're going to be able to keep their shield up and keep the damage away. And what a shot coming out from Milkers. Headshot right to Marcus, takes him out of the sky, sends him back to spawn.
Which is exactly what they needed right there to just secure the tail end of the fight. Now a huge ult advantage in favor of Luma as well. Only 50 seconds left. I don't see how Team Primal wins this without some major misplays from Luma. That's basically the only thing that could turn this point over.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Luma has to know that they've got several win conditions here. They've got a Deadeye and an Amp Matrix. They have the Blizzard, though, which I think is even more impactful than both those ults combined. It looks like Team Primal is going to get a little bit more progress on the point, but the Blizzard is committed, and now the damage is going to start to come in. But it's once again coming in favor of Luma, and with 19 seconds left on the clock, there's not much left that Team Primal can do. Somebody's going to have to swap to a Wrecking Ball or a Lucio to try and get back the point if they have any hope of taking this, especially with so many picks already in favor. And look at that stagger coming in as well. 5 seconds left to go. Can Robodun even touch? Shatter comes in and it doesn't catch Robodun. They're able to juke it just to the side. Sound Barrier committed as well. And Robodun isn't long through this world. That's going to take care of them. Deadeye now committed as well to try and zone anyone out. But is anyone even going to touch? And oh, look, they catch Titan X out. Excellent finish there for Luma.
Yeah, they were close, but no cigar for Team Primal. An interesting situation, actually, we've been handed here, Juggle.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest. I don't think this is necessarily a death blow here for Team Primal. Obviously, you prefer the completion, right? And you prefer to get 2 ticks on the second point, if at all possible. They got very close to 2 ticks. They didn't quite get 2. Why I don't think this is a death blow is because it is undoubtedly more difficult to attack a 2CP than it is to defend it, especially on Hanamura. I feel like is a very quite defender-sided map, at least on the second point. So I think there's still plenty of road for Team Primal to run on here. If they can put in a really good performance on point number 1, I think that will stand them in good stead for getting the hold on point number 2. And I know, again, that sounds very academic, but it's just true. If they get steamrolled on the first point, I don't think they can pull this off. But if they can draw maybe like 2.5 minutes, even 3 minutes out of that first point, I think they probably will walk away with the map win.
I think you're absolutely right in that assessment. It's going to be up to this. I think we're gonna learn the most we're going to after this very first push from Luma. Still haven't exactly decided on what Paper Knave wants to roll out on at the moment. They do eventually settle on a Diva, so Luma may be looking a little bit unsure right now in spawn as to how they want to try and take this. Titan X trying to get in a little damage as people rotate over to the choke. Able to get in some, but not anything significant. Immortality Field does have to be committed, though, by Luma. And now Primal is has to go back to point. 1 tick already on the board for Luma, though. They've got to do something big, and that could be it, as Proppy is down and out. So Luma not going to be able to engage or disengage like they might like to, and with the kills now coming in firmly in favor of Team Primal, Luma still capturing the point. They get 2 ticks on board, but this is exactly, I think, the kind of start that Team Primal needed to hold here.
That was perfect for them. I hate the teleport. I'll be honest with you. I hate the teleportation strats on Hanamura, just because, they're so janky sometimes. And even when you get a really good teleport, that was a really good teleport, it doesn't necessarily guarantee success. What's interesting to note, though, is they did get 2 ticks off of that before they were finally able to drive Luma off. And that is problematic. And this immediate recontest is problematic as well.
Oh my gosh, Robodun throws a shatter right into a Mayball, and now somebody has to touch, but there's just so much coming out from Luma right now. They are going to be able to come away with this fight win and this point. They're gonna have a good time bank, but not quite the same that Primal had.
Well, your mark is set now. You've got 5 minutes and 30 seconds to defend, and there's going to be no rest here. Luma's immediately coming back on with the teleporter for the instant aggro attack.
That they are. Imagine this wall is going to be used very early on. Here comes the amplification matrix as well from Dirty Digas. But this photon projector is doing tremendous damage. The blizzard as well is huge. This could be it. This could be the moment that Luma takes it all from Team Primal. They just have 4 more kills between them and victory. But Froppy is taken out of the fight by Robodon. They follow very shortly afterwards, though still no pick on board for Luma, but they are getting closer and closer to victory. But the shatter is huge, and that's going to signal at least 1 tick, maybe 2 with the Maywall there, and that's going to do it. Luma comes away with a 3-1 win over Team Primal.
Oh, Team Primal there just not able to handle the smoke at the tail end. I mean, that's the truth of it. The teleporter caught him completely off guard on the initial point of the defense, and though they were able to stem the bleeding, I think that boded very poorly for the rest of what happened here. I mean, just look at the damage this Symmetra is doing once they actually get into it, and it's also forcing characters like Pharah. Marcus had to drop on towards the site. That's never a place where you want your Pharah to be. You can't leverage the full damage of the rockets. You couldn't leverage the full accessibility of the high ground right there. And you know what? Very well played by Luma. They showed very great discipline. They showed good organization. Their ult usage was very effective all day long, basically, in this matchup. And they didn't look like the underdog here. They did not look like the 4-4 team.
No, they didn't. And once again, today, David topples Goliath in GG EU. So congratulations to Luma. Whatever happened to you all between the regular season and the postseason has just been tremendous. So kudos to you all, your coaching staff, and whatever it was that has made the difference so far you in this run. And they're headed to the grand finals. We've just got one more team to see who's going to make it to through the semifinals. That's going to happen this Sunday. But before we close out this broadcast, I want to remind you that GGNA is going to be happening right after this as well. So if you haven't gotten your fill of Overwatch yet, don't worry. We're really only halfway through, frankly. So stick around for more of that. But Korbeck, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to cast with you. My first time on GGEU. Couldn't have asked for a better experience. So thank you so much for joining me here. And anything you'd like to leave the audience with before we close things out?
It's been a pleasure casting with you as well, Juggle. It's the first time we cast together, so it went relatively well in that regard. But I've enjoyed these matches very much. It's always great to see a day for underdogs, right? It's always great to see that on stream. We had an awesome reverse sweep, and then we had the underdogs coming out here in this matchup and just looking really good. And I think both of these matches mean that we're in for some very exciting grand finals is the thing that I would take away.
I think you are absolutely right. I don't think any team is going to take take one of these wins for granted from here on out. Well, that's going to do it for us. I want to give a quick thank you to all of the production staff. We've got Korbeck and Zeus, or sorry, Korbeck, you are my co-caster. We've got Zeuser, we've got Jari, we've got Plushcap. Thank you all so much on the production side. Thank you, Elo Hell, for putting this on, and all of you for watching. Once again, my name, Warren Juggle God Hammond, been joined on the mic by the phenomenal Korbeck. GG's, and see you next time.
Healing that's coming up from them, and then the Ana goes down after that, and it was just quick cleanup. Resignations and Witty really clutching out in the DPS department for SM, and they've got first capture crossing 15%. Ultimate's coming up online already. You're going to have Deadeye, and look, we've got Grab Dragons available for that test.
Oh, and they're going to waste no time in committing it. The Graviton comes out. It was there, but it's not going to get any... Oh, excited. Thank you so much, Cybjorn. Living up to the... Oh, beautiful strats from More Esports. They're going to go ahead and teleport directly onto the point. So they will be needing them tantamount.
Nothing to try and eat it with, nothing to stave it off, no support ultimates. They've got a shatter. It might just have to be put in to keep the Bastion ult, but they don't care about this Bastion ult. They've got a Batiste!
Oh man, this is just nutty right now.
This is not something that you want to push in on, but it's going to be the bomb and the charge into Mansion picks at 3. All of the 3 that you want, the Reinhardt, both of the supports, and this is the fight done already. Frost Dragon
comes.
It does pull out the Transcendence, but the anti-nade gets...
And here comes back on the Doomfist, not hacked up by the EMP critically. Starjummer has the Deadeye, no hack this time around. Starjummer gonna clean up the fight, get 3, get the electric cowboy for dancing a theft.
This might be the best map for that in all of Overwatch as we see the hook shot and the headshot.
With the silk thread shot going on. Is it gonna work really well against the Ghost Confar as fine people punching out? Yeah, or you're not gonna get through this.
I love watching teams that I haven't seen play before play. It's always thrilling.
It really is. It's wild cards. It's something you don't get to see at the higher levels. Everybody's at least been seen usually at lower level matches. So this is always a fun experience.